few sore heads and looking at some of the faces in the sunglasses. I definitely think that's the case. But look, they deserve it. They deserve to celebrate. I think they'll be very emotional.
Crowds were also treated to a special performance from Serena Wiegmann and Burna Boy. Now, there's a duo I never thought I'd see. You can find more on the celebrations at talkSPORT.com. Elsewhere today, Danny Röhl has thanked the players, staff and fans of Sheffield Wednesday as he leaves Hillsborough. It was a mutual decision to end his contract, and it's expected his assistant will take over. talkSPORT's Alex Crook says it seems things are going from bad to worse at S6.
Yeah, there's talk that the main North Stand at Hillsborough won't be able to open for the start of the EFL season because it's not got the relevant safety certificates. The training ground has been deemed not fit for purpose over the course of the summer. There's been no official first-team friendlies. A host of stars have left the club.
Some transfer news now. João Felix has left Chelsea and signed a permanent deal with Al Nassr in a move that looks to reach over £43 million. It's our understanding James Trafford has signed a 6-year contract at City as he's set for a return from Burnley. Meanwhile, City have rejected a £25 million bid from Forest for James McAtee. And Morecambe's future is in doubt after their National League membership was suspended. The club's been handed severe sanctions for failing to meet their financial obligations, while one former heavyweight champion has previously expressed interest in taking over his hometown club. Simon Jordan reckons Tyson Fury should put his money where his mouth is.
Let's call him out. Let's say that Tyson Fury, the most prominent resident of Morecambe, that's got lots to say for himself and always talking about how he can help different people and different functions. Here you go. Here's an opportunity, Tyson. Put your hand in your pocket. Yeah. You've made a fortune. We've seen your latest set of accounts. You've got 175 million quid in assets.
And the rest.
Buy your football club.
For more on these stories, head to talksport.com.
Yeah, evening all. This is the Transfer Insiders on talkSPORT with me, Nick Bright, and Rory Jennings. And there is loads for us to go at this evening. We'll discuss Arsenal and their business this summer. Is Mikel Arteta's last chance to get his hands on major silverware this season, according to Arsenal fans and beyond. Are Burnley in trouble? Well, James Trafford, he's off to Manchester City. We'll look at that. Tottenham Hotspur were there in Hong Kong, setting up for the big North London derby on Thursday. The North London derby that isn't happening in North London, as is pre-season. They've missed out on Morgan Gibbs White. So what do they do next? And of course, we'll touch on Manchester United as well. Sesko, Watkins, Garnacho, and even Onana. What happens with all of these players? We'll give our opinion, and we want yours as well. You can always get in touch with the show. Text us 81089, or you can call us on 0371722 3344. You can WhatsApp on the same number as well. This is Transfer Insiders on talkSPORT. Oh yeah, we'll let the beat run. We'll let the beat run. Tap your toes. We love that. Yes, Rory Jennings sitting opposite me. How are you, mate?
I'm good. Yeah, looking forward to this, Nick.
Yeah, me too. Very much so. How you been since we last chatted? What's happened? I think did Chelsea win a major trophy?
That's all. Just, I mean, it isn't quite as newsworthy as it would be for other teams. Like Chelsea winning silverware, top tier silverware. Chelsea planting our flag on foreign soil. Chelsea lifting the Club World Cup. Yeah, we've done it all again. I mean, normal services resumed. That's what happens.
I know it's, like you said, I know it's kind of happened now, hasn't it? But I haven't had a chance to speak to you about it. And the last conversation that we had, you were saying, we've got no chance, that the route's going to be too difficult and all of that. And then bang, look at that.
I know. It was amazing. It was an amazing result. I think winning silverware in New York City, it feels poignant, doesn't it? It feels significant. And it was a glorious night. I mean, Cole Palmer is obviously the jewel in the crown, but we've got to give Enzo Maresca a load of credit there. Loads and so much credit, because he worked out a system that embarrassed Luis Enrique. He really did. So it was glorious to behold. And I think now, off the back of winning that trophy in New York City, I think it's unlikely that Chelsea win the league. but I think that we need to launch a serious and sustained bid for the Premier League title.
Do you think you can do it?
No, to be totally frank, I don't think we'll win the league. But what we need to be waiting, ready to win the league. If there's an unpredictable moment next season, maybe it doesn't go Liverpool's way in the way that it didn't go Man City's way last year. The points tally that I believe it will take to win the league next season is an insurmountable points tally for Chelsea, because I think that ultimately Liverpool are going to accrue in excess of 93 points. So I don't think that this Chelsea team is capable. But let's say that the points tally that is required to win the league is actually less than that. Say it all goes a little bit wrong and the eventual champions are announced with 86 points. That needs to be us.
It could happen. It could happen because, everyone's strengthening. I think it's going to be different compared to last season. I don't think there'll be a runaway winner like there was last season, but we'll have to wait and see. Look, a bit of breaking news for you here, Rory, though. Manchester City, they've officially re-signed Burnley's James Trafford. 27 million quid is how much he's gone for. I mean, good signing in a way, but in other ways, some people might argue, is he happy to just sit on the bench?
Yeah, I mean, I can understand the signing. I don't think he will go there with that motivation, though. Like, he's a professional footballer who's got to the very top of the game.
He's not going to dislodge Edison, though, is he?
No, but I think I would agree with you, but I don't think he would agree with us. He needs to be going there expecting to win his place in the first team. He can't go there saying, I'm going to be a bench player. He'll be looking at Edison, looking at Edison's form. Like, let's not position Edison as if he had a sort of Lev Yashin-like season. He hasn't had a particularly good time of it of late. He hasn't been infallible. There is a chance that he could be dropped. There was a chance that he could have left. I think there is a world where James Trafford will look at the performances of Edison over recent times and think that he could become number one this year. If not this year, he will certainly believe that he can dislodge him next year.
I mean, we all know Pep Guardiola loves a ball-playing goalkeeper, though. I mean, does he fit that mould?
Not to the same degree, and not yet. But I think what we know about Pep Guardiola is up until this point, he's loved a goalkeeper that can almost start attacks, a goalkeeper capable of playing as a sweeper, a goalkeeper capable of playing a pass that some outfield players at other clubs can't even see. But equally, he's a man that constantly evolves. And there is no guarantee that the way that he wants to play next season, if you think about what they did fairly recently without centre-forward, suddenly they are a team totally built around a centre-forward.
Yeah.
Maybe having a goalkeeper who is favoured for his distribution isn't a prerequisite to the new Pep Guardiola 4.0 that we're going to see next season.
Yeah, fair. Right, just before we speak about Arsenal, I just wanted to have a quick word, because I know we've been covering it here all day on talkSPORT, but just a quick word from you, Rory, and from me, I guess. The Lionesses parade was today, and as we were coming into the building here, I was seeing so many kind of England shirts, England flags, clearly people that have been down at Trafalgar Square enjoying, and on the Mall, of course, enjoying the celebrations. I mean, what a moment, not only to lift the trophy twice, but, just to come home to that hero's welcome.
Yeah, I mean, it was amazing. I mean, Serena Wiegmann sort of stole the show. Did you see her kind of dancing with Burner Boy?
With Burner Boy. That was not on my bingo card, mate.
No, I mean that was truly amazing. But I just found everything about this Lionesses victory just superb. I really have. And I think Chloe Kelly deserves nothing but praise. I found it so refreshing. Their unbridled, unapologetic patriotism. The fact that we heard it on multiple occasions. I'm so proud to be English. It was just unashamedly said that was something that was put out there, and it's not something that we hear as often. I love the Lionesses. I love what they represent, and I think that they should feel inspiring to the nation.
Yeah, completely agree. Right, let's quickly talk Arsenal then. The Preseason Tour is underway, and so far, so good for the Gunners. Beat AC Milan 1-0 and then randomly lost on a penalty shootout in the same game because it's pre-season, and even though you win, you have a penalty shootout as well. And then beat Newcastle 3-2 as well. They take on Tottenham Hotspur on Thursday in that North London derby in Hong Kong. What have you made of Arsenal's transfer business, Rory? I mean, as an Arsenal fan, I'm loving it.
I think they've done very well up until this point, Arsenal. I think they've done very well up until this point. What will actually be the decider? Look, going out and signing Victor Gyokeres is huge. It's something that's noteworthy. It's something that they deserve an awful lot of credit for. And it could be defining. They needed to go and sign Gyokeres. Gyokeres was the most... he scored most goals in Europe. And Arsenal have gone out and they've signed a best-in-class player, which is what they needed to do. In my opinion, it's not enough. In my opinion, what they need to do now is marry up the signing of Victor Gyokeres, which is an inspirational signing, with more. If you look at the methodology employed by Liverpool, you look at what they've done. they've gone out and they've signed a best-in-class player. But not only have they gone out and they signed a best-in-class player, a statement signing in Florian Wirtz, they've also tweaked their squad where they needed to tweak their squad. They've gone and signed someone like Gyokeres. What they also need to do, Arsenal, is, I think, the differentiator between Arsenal being a good team who will finish in the top 4 or a team totally capable of being the who's in the ears of Liverpool all the way to the end of the season. I think it's so easy.
Go on.
You go and you sign Eberechi Eze.
Exactly what I was going to say. Look, I know it's really easy as fans to be like, you know, this one player can change everything and blah, blah, blah. And loads of people have said that for years about the striker. I mean, for a long time at Arsenal, it was all about a defensive midfielder. You know what I mean? When Patrick Vieira left, it was like we never replaced Patrick Vieira. But I really believe that last season should be enough evidence for Mikel Arteta and the hierarchy to realise that we can't rely solely on Martin Ødegaard. As great as he is, he had a fantastic season the season before last, right? A brilliant season. I mean, people were talking about, and I'm not doing the direct comparison here. I'm not saying, you know, KDB and Ødegaard. I'm not comparing the two, but people were talking about Martin Ødegaard in the same, you know, conversations as Kevin De Bruyne, which is amazing. But last season he went off the boil, and you need a plan B. And that's not to say that Eberechi Eze would be the plan B, but, you know, it's just something different. A proven Premier League creator, someone who's doing it for a club who score or create way less opportunities than a club like Arsenal. You know, you bring Eze in alongside Martin Ødegaard, and for me, I think that puts us, you know, on another level in terms of staying up there with the likes of Liverpool. I mean, if Alexander Isak comes in at Liverpool, I still think it puts us, you know, up there with Liverpool. I still make them favourites, don't get me wrong, but, you know, I think that Eze signing is so important.
Yeah. Oh no, without the Eze signing, they don't win the league. I think what Eberechi Eze would do if he did end up playing for Arsenal, I think he would raise the tide. I think he would elevate everybody. I think all of a sudden Bukayo Saka's a better player because he's got somebody like Eberechi Eze in the team. And Eberechi Eze is probably the best player playing in the Premier League who's Premier League proven, that is playing for a club that are still perceived, rightly or wrongly, as a selling club. Like Alexander Isak is probably the best player outside of the Big Six. He's the best player outside of the Big Six, but Liverpool are working on it, but it's going to be very hard to get him. What Eberechi Eze is, he represents the player that you could actually get that could be, I think that could be the differentiator for Arsenal. And if they get him, I think it really is game on for the Premier League title for Arsenal.
I have to agree. And look, it's funny, isn't it? We've just brushed over the fact that, you know, Arsenal have signed Victor Gyokeres, finally. That deal's gone through. They've got that coveted number 9 that they've been waiting for such a long time, although he's taking the number 14, which at Arsenal, we know that shirt weighs heavy. You know, Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang wore that shirt, couldn't quite replicate the heroics of arguably Arsenal's greatest ever player. Theo Walcott wore the shirt, same thing. How do you think Gyokeres will get on in the number 14 jersey for Arsenal?
Gyokeres, what I would say with regards to Victor Gyokeres, like, whether it works or whether it doesn't work, I feel like Arsenal have done the right thing. They've gone out and they've signed a player who is the best in class. The top goal scorer in Europe last year was Victor Gyokeres. Arsenal had a gaping hole. They've had a problem position up front. They've been searching for a striker for well over a year now, and they've gone out and they've signed the player that they believe will fix that. And the data suggests that they have signed the best player. Even if it doesn't work, Arsenal have done the right thing and they've approached it in the right way. In terms of will it work, I believe that it probably will, but I don't necessarily think that people have been questioning it the way that it deserves to be questioned, because scoring goals in the Portuguese league, whilst the record is unbelievable, 98 goals in 102 games, that is
unreal,
significant, right? But it is only the Portuguese league, and I don't say that with any element of sneer or disrespect, but the facts of the matter are, it is only the Portuguese league. Frankly, I believe Victor Gyokeres will land in the Premier League, will score goals in the Premier League, and will be a good Premier League player for Arsenal, and potentially a title winner with Arsenal. But there is a little bit of jeopardy there, surely, just because the track record is Portugal.
You're getting me excited, Roy. You're getting me excited, mate. You can't talk like that on national radio because I'm going to get carried away. Right, Mike has been in touch and just says, Jennings, take some holiday, mate. Too much time on the airwaves. I'm starting to agree with some of the things you say.
Sounds like you need the holiday.
Lovely.
Yeah, mate. You're right. First time I've seen anything positive in about 48 hours.
03717 22 33 44 or 8 1089. Right, tonight we've got some football, believe it or not. It is the League Cup preliminary round. Barnet are taking on Newport County, and Ian Abrahams is there for us. Hello, Moose.
Hello, yes, the last season finished on Sunday with the Lionesses winning. The new season starts tonight with the EFL trophy, the EFL Cup rather, and the preliminary round between Barnet and Newport. Lots of new signings for both sides. Both have new goalkeepers, Joe Wright for Barnet and Nikola Zanev for Newport County. Adam Senior, who's one of the best friends of the goalkeeper you mentioned, who just joined Manchester City, James Trafford. He starts for the first time for Barnet, as is Joe Hugel on loan from Manchester United. Michael Ranov and Ben Lloyd on loan from Cardiff and Swansea respectively are in the Newport lineup. We start here at 7:30. It's Barnet against Newport, the preliminary round of the League Cup.
Thank you very much, Ian Abrahams, keeping us across everything in that match there, Barnet against Newport County. Right, you're listening to the Transfer Insiders on talkSPORT with Ladbrokes, 18+, begambleaware.org.
$10K for Coldplay.
Yeah, that's right. Coldplay are back at Wembley this summer, and we've got a huge VIP prize up for grabs for one lucky listener. We're giving you the chance to win six tickets in a private box for you and your mates on the 22nd of August with full hospitality. Plus, if that's not enough, we're chucking in 10 grand spending money, completely tax-free. Now, I know what you're wondering, how do I enter, Brighty? Well, this is what you need to do. You've got to be 18 plus in the UK, excluding Northern Ireland, for your chance to win. Text the word win to 83338 by the 4th of August at 11 p.m. and you are in the draw. Text costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. You must have the bill payer's permission or post your name and number to Coldplay Competition, PO Box 3190, Colchester, CO2 8GP, to arrive by 5 p.m. on the 7th of August. This is a talkSPORT limited promotion run on talkSPORT, Talk and Virgin UK stations. Full T's and C's at talksport.com. Right, time now to get an odds update with Ladbrokes.
Odds update on talkSPORT with Ladbrokes. Supercharge your odds with our odds boost button. Selected markets applies to first £50 of stake. Terms apply. 18 plus. Gambleaware.org.
And let's say hello then to Alex Apati from Ladbrokes. Evening, mate.
Good evening, folks. How are we?
Yeah, not too bad. Not too bad. Right, talk to us then. Are any notable transfer updates?
Yeah, I mean, what is it we got tonight? EFL preliminary round?
Yeah, that's the one.
Barnet, Newport. the game's gone. Game's gone.
Out of order, you, mate.
Yeah, listen, transfer updates. I mean, so much has happened already, hasn't it? Liverpool, Arsenal, City have all strengthened and probably will strengthen further. Alexander Isak is third favourite in the betting at 5-1 for this year's Golden Boot. Who knows? Looking elsewhere, Man United still do need to strengthen. You feel they're so far off the pace on so many fronts, but starting at the back, they are now odds on to sign Emi Martinez from Aston Villa at 4-6, which would be quite the upgrade on Onana, I think. They're also favourites to sign Ollie Watkins too, so really could raid Aston Villa this summer at both ends of the pitch. It's 2-1 at the moment for Ollie Watkins to join United during this transfer window, so far from nailed on. But you feel he probably would tick a lot of boxes there. I mentioned Arsenal too. They've already spent, just shy of £200 million so far on 6 players. They're odds on to make it 7, though, in the next couple of weeks. Eberechi Eze, now 1-4 to sign for Arsenal, has been linked with a move over the last few weeks. It looks incredibly likely to happen now, and you would assume surely they would be done with incomings. Then it would all just be about who might be leaving. Few players have been pushed further down that pecking order at the Emirates, so could still be a really busy few weeks for them.
Alex, that's huge. I didn't realise that the Eberechi Eze deal felt so close from your perspective. 1-4 on to go to Arsenal.
Yeah, right now. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
There we go.
Okay, I mean, that's going to have a huge impact on the conversation that we have about the Premier League title race.
Well, there's a few things in there that I just want to pick from. I didn't realise that Martinez to Manchester United was tipped so highly as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, there you go. I mean, look, they need a goalkeeper, right? Martinez made a bit of a name for himself at Old Trafford last day of the season, so... yeah, I suppose he's got some friends to make up there. So, yeah, it's pretty short at the minute.
And what about with regard to the Women's Super League, the outrights there, Alex? What are you thinking?
Well, yeah, there's a few interesting ones to watch this season. First of all, I mean, look, Chelsea have won it. Is it 6 years in a row now, Rory?
Yeah.
It's hard not to make a case for them being favourites, as they are. They're 7-4. It was a breeze for them last season. In the end, they finished 12 points clear of Arsenal. Arsenal themselves, though, are 5-2 in the betting. 5 of their players are returning as European champions. Of course, they've just won the Champions League too. The problem with Arsenal ladies is they always seem to be slow out of the blocks. They're always playing catch up with Chelsea. So I think they won 1 of 4, their opening 4 last season. They failed to win their opening 2 games the year before. They've got to put that right. Then it's Man City also at 5-2 ahead of Man United at 5-1. And then the ones to watch, London City Lionesses, in the year of the Lionesses, their first season in the WSL. They're currently 8-1 according to our traders to win the title. It's a big ask, but I think one thing you can be sure of this season for them in the WSL is they will cause a few upsets.
All right, Alex, thank you very much. Alex Apati there. That was a look at the latest odds with Ladbrokes, 18+, begambleaware.org.
Odds update on talkSPORT with Ladbrokes. Supercharge your odds with our Odds Boost button. Selected markets applies to first £50 of stake. Terms apply. 18+, gambleaware.org.
Right, it's the Transfer Insiders then with me, Nick Bright and Rory Jennings. And just before we move on to talk about Mikel Arteta, I just wanted to read out a few of these messages, Rory. This one here says, look at Chelsea, our first 6 fixtures, completely winnable, then Liverpool. And if we win that, why not the league? As we showed with PSG, with momentum and belief, we can be unstoppable. The next decade will be blue.
That's
inspiring.
That's inspiring. What a wordsmith. I completely agree. but he's completely correct there, because the fixtures have been very kind to us. Look, we play Liverpool on the 2nd of October, I think it is. But if we can go into that with a pretty much perfect record, we are going to be laughing, because we're a team that are built on momentum. The jeopardy that comes with having a nice run at the beginning of the season is that if you don't win them, you're then going to be up against it.
Yeah.
But we are very fortunate. We had an arduous summer. Obviously, Cole Palmer has played another full summer just off the back of last year's full summer and presumably next year's full summer. So I don't think we leave London for like the first month of the season. We are very fortunate with the way that the fixtures have been drawn. So fingers crossed we can get off to a flyer, because I feel like that's how it will be won. I think anybody, it's going to be the greyhounds out the trap. It's going to be 100 miles an hour from the second that the referee blows the whistle on that opening weekend of the season.
Yeah. And Albert's been in touch. I don't know if I said this, but Albert says when I was talking about the number 14 shirt, I said it was once worn by Arsenal's best ever Premier League player, Theo Walcott. I don't think I said that. I mentioned Theo Walcott, but I was saying that the shirt weighs heavy because it was once worn by our best player, comma. As in Thierry Henry. Although I could be wrong. I do say a lot of things and then don't realise it.
Do you think the prestige of the T-shirt has been slightly diluted with the Eddie Nketiah?
Oh yeah, I did forget about that. Maybe deliberately. Although Albert has texted in to send that to Clips of the Week on Hawksby and Jacobs. So,
mate, if you make Clips of the Week, that's one of the most iconic. They're like that. I tune into Clips of the Week every single week.
Well, here's hoping.
Yeah, if you make it onto Clips of the Week, you're living the dream. That's honestly like one of those things that you want in life. Like, when you were a kid, you wanted a Blue Peter badge. You get a little bit older, you want to be on Hawksby and Jacobs Clips of the Week. That is the dream come true.
Well, fingers crossed I did say it. Right, Mikel Arteta then. Let's talk about the Arsenal gaffer. Because a lot of people, and this isn't just this season, a lot of people have been questioning Mikel Arteta in terms of, has he taken Arsenal as far as he can? So I'm guessing the question that I'm going to throw at you, Rory, is do you think this season is Mikel Arteta's last chance? Does he need to win a major trophy?
Yes, I think he does. I think it's more complex than you've positioned it, though, and I know that you've positioned it with the top line there. But I think that there is, of course, a world where Mikel Arteta could have an excellent season next year and not win any silverware. The problem that he's got is I think this team have been so good for so long that they need a defining moment. Every good team has something that defines them. The reason why we look back on various teams over the years and we anoint them something is because they made that possible. The reason why we call Arsene Wenger's best team the Invincibles is because they did something that is historic. You've got the Man City Centurions, you've got the Manchester United treble winners, you've got the Man City treble winners, you've got Jose Mourinho's first team that accrued 95 points and retained the league title. You've got those moments in a season, and you've got those defining features. This Arsenal team, they don't have that. They've been brilliant, and we lived it, and we know that they were great. But there is a chance that this could go maybe the way Tottenham had a great team, didn't they? They had a great team, 16, 17, 18, and I think at various points they were the best team in the calendar year. But they have nothing to show for it. And ultimately that Tottenham team will be forgotten because history is always written by the winners.
Yeah. Do you think that there's something in... Obviously, Liverpool were off it the season before last, and then Slots come... Well, he slotted straight in, hasn't he? And, won them the Premier League title in their first season. So, a title which some people argue should have been Arsenal's. If Manchester City weren't going to win it, it should have been Arsenal's to win. So do you think that's added pressure to this, Mikel Arteta needing to win a trophy?
I think so. I think it's cumulative. I think Arsenal, he's the manager of a really big club who have a proud track record of winning silverware over the years. Arsenal, not all his own fault at all, but Arsenal have gone over 2 decades now without a league title. For Arsenal to be the club that they want to be, if you go back to that David Rocastle quote about remember the badge on your shirt and what it represents, that is unacceptable for Arsenal. And Mikel Arteta has had a lot of time there now. He's had a lot of money there now, and he has done really well. I think what I'm about to say is going to sound very harsh on Mikel Arteta, so before I say it, what I want to acknowledge is I rate him really highly. I think what he has done, the way that he's turned Arsenal around, is so impressive. And when I see Arsenal, generally Arsenal fans online, maybe calling for his head or being disrespectful to Mikel Arteta, it doesn't chime with the way that I see the situation. I concede I'm looking at it from the outside in, but I think he's done a really good job. And if nothing else, he has turned Arsenal from a punchline into a serious football club. This time last year, well, not this time last year, a few months ago, Nick, I genuinely was fearful that Arsenal were going to win the European Cup. I was having real problems about it, and I thought when you beat Real Madrid home and away, I thought, oh my God, it's actually going to happen. And I was trying to rationalise how I could, I can't be in London on the day of the final, I've got to be out elsewhere or whatever because it was going to be hateful. That's all due to the brilliance of Mikel Arteta. However, the fact that Arne Slot came into a league and won it at the first attempt doesn't paint Mikel Arteta's tenure in the best possible colour. Yeah. Combine that with the fact that at the beginning of the season, this time last year, if we'd been saying, if I said to you, Nick, hypothetically, Man City will lose 11 out of 13 games and have a pig's ear of a season and will not win the league, who will win it? I think every man and his dog says Arsenal.
Yeah. Well, for what it's worth, I think he's got a little bit more credit in the bank as somebody who was living through the dark times of the back end of Arsene Wenger and then that Unai Emery disaster. But, I know everybody's entitled to their opinion, right? You are listening to the Transfer Insiders then with Nick Bright and Rory Jennings. We'll have more for you shortly. You're listening to talkSPORT.
I'm holding back tears, says England captain Leah Williamson, as she addressed tens of thousands of fans on the Mall celebrating their back-to-back Euros win. They had a special bus parade before taking to the stage outside Buckingham Palace. Former Lioness Courtney Sweetman-Kirk tried to sum up how the squad might be feeling.
Firstly, hungover, I would imagine. I think there'll be a few sore heads, and looking at some of the faces in the sunglasses, I definitely think that's the case. But look, they deserve it. They deserve to celebrate. I think they'll be very emotional.
Crowds were also treated to a special performance from Serena Wiegmann and Burna Boy. Now, there's a duo I never thought I'd see. You can find more on the celebrations at talksport.com. Elsewhere today, Danny Röhl has thanked the players, staff and fans of Sheffield Wednesday as he leaves Hillsborough. It was a mutual decision to end his contract, and it's expected his assistant will take over. talkSPORT's Alex Crook says it seems things are going from bad to worse at S6.
There's talk that the main North Stand at Hillsborough won't be able to open for the start of the EFL season because it's not got the relevant safety certificates. The training ground has been deemed not fit for purpose over the course of the summer. There's been no official first-team friendlies. A host of stars have left the club.
Some transfer news now. João Felix has left Chelsea and signed a permanent deal.
Yeah, it is the Transfer Insiders then with Nick Bright and Rory Jennings, and it's time now to look at the latest football action with Ladbrokes.
The big preview on talkSPORT with Ladbrokes. Supercharge your odds with our odds boost button. Selected markets applies to first £50 of stake. Terms apply. 18+. Gambleaware.org.
And let's say hello to talkSPORT reporter Ben Jacobs. Evening, mate.
Evening, guys. How are you?
Yeah, not too bad. Not too bad. I hope you are as well. There's a lot going on. So we'll start with Alexander Isak. What's next for one of the most sought after players?
Yeah, I think Liverpool are waiting for the right time in the market to potentially make a move. A bid seems to be anticipated at the Newcastle end. A bit more cautious from Liverpool. I think a few steps are needed. The first is almost Newcastle to say Isak is for sale, and the only way they're going to do that is by bringing in replacements, and therefore it may not matter who the forward or forwards are, but I think one or two have to come in, or at least be lined up before perhaps Liverpool turn their clear interest in Isak into something formal, because Newcastle already know, as indicated directly by Liverpool earlier in the window, they're prepared to make an offer that would break the British transfer record. So timing is everything. We know that Newcastle are not giving up yet on Yoane Wissa, but it's difficult because Brentford at the moment want 40, if not 50 million. Benjamin Sesko's an option. It's an expensive deal, but it might unlock the Isak situation. So I think what Newcastle do in the market, and all the noise and all the politics and all the tension, it's very much a Newcastle challenge in recruitment and, of course, with the player. And then once all that is sorted in the next days, Liverpool may then make their move.
Ben, do you think, obviously you've got, you're well versed when it comes to these transfers. From the outside looking in here, it feels like it's all kind of run out of momentum. Is there anything for Liverpool fans to worry about, or is this happening at the rate that you would expect it to?
Yeah, exactly the rate that I expected it, simply because a deal of this magnitude takes time, and any Liverpool fans that might be worried need to understand it's a British transfer record. You've got a player that's got 3 years left on his contract. You've got a Newcastle United side that need attackers regardless of the Isak situation, because Callum Wilson has ultimately left, and therefore it's step by step. And I look back at the Florian Wirtz saga, and I think step one was actually Liverpool saying, like now, we're cautious, we might not bid, we think the player could stay in Germany. Step two was the player, which Liverpool have already got with Isak, saying, I want to move. As soon as they got the buy-in from Wirtz, you had a deal that was billed as 150 million euros, and yet Liverpool did it for closer to 135 million euros all in, assuming the add-ons are paid. And that took about 2 weeks of negotiation. So even if Newcastle turned around right now and said, we'll sell you Isak, and even with Isak saying he wants Liverpool, it still might take weeks rather than minutes or hours to actually negotiate a deal of this magnitude. And until it gets to the point where Liverpool are confident that at the right price, on the right terms, Isak is possible, they are likely to maintain a safe distance of admiration, even if privately they're actually still, of course, working on it behind the scenes.
And there's you know, I'm guessing you don't know the answer to this, but there's no way this can get hijacked by anybody else, you know, because like I said,
you're dreaming here.
Well, no, I don't mean Arsenal. I don't mean Arsenal. Obviously, they just got Gyokeres, but just in terms of, like, you know, he's one of the most sought after players, one of the best strikers, you know, in the world right now, and I'm just surprised that nobody else is sniffing around, or it's not reported anyway.
Yeah, there's very few clubs that can do a deal of this magnitude. Liverpool have got plenty of PSR headroom. In addition to that, Newcastle have said not for sale to anyone anyway. So you have to have a situation where you can afford it, strike a deal with Newcastle and have player buy-in. At the moment, the player is open to Liverpool. No other suitor has come forwards. Arsenal have just signed Victor Gyokeres. Could they have entered the race if they didn't? And Isak had forced to move a bit earlier, and it was obvious that there was at least a chance he was available in the market. I think maybe Arsenal would have considered it, at least. A lot of talk about Chelsea. If Jackson went to Newcastle, could Isak go to Chelsea? I have no indication of that at this stage. You can never say never in a window, but what I can say is that Saudi distancing themselves, despite the fact that central deal makers really like Isak, so that's probably an indication he doesn't want to go there. PSG distancing themselves, Chelsea distancing themselves, Manchester United distancing themselves, Arsenal distancing themselves. That's where we're at for now. The window can do crazy things, but at the moment it does look like a Newcastle stay or Liverpool.
And Ben, it's looking like Nottingham Forest are kind of getting their act together, making some noise. Dan N'Doye has joined.
Yeah, Dan N'Doye has joined Nottingham Forest. That move has been completed. A winger from Bologna. The initial fee is about 40 million euros, and there's some add-ons on top. And Forest are now going to be busy. They've obviously made sure that Morgan Gibbs-White stays. He's signed a new deal, so he won't be moving off to Tottenham Hotspur. And I think there's more to follow still. They are looking at another midfielder, possibly a defensive reinforcement too. So keep an eye on Nottingham Forest in the final few weeks of the window. They're going to be be active. West Ham are going to be active as well because they've got some Mohamed Kudus money to spend. And let's also see what direction Spurs move in now, because they won't have put 60 million through what they believe to be a legally triggered release clause for Morgan Gibbs-White and then just not spend that money. So I'm expecting more attack-minded reinforcements for Spurs. I think they're going to bring in a number 6 if they possibly can, and maybe another defender as well. And then we have to wait and see, obviously, whether Son departs to either Saudi Arabia or LAFC. So sides like Forest, West Ham, Spurs, they're going to get busy in the final month or so of the window.
That will not be music to the ears of supporters of the next club that I'm going to mention, because I think if I was a Brentford supporter, I'd be worried. They've lost so many of their big players already, and Yoane Wissa might be joining those players that have departed.
Yeah, I think Yoane Wissa at the moment only wants Newcastle. Tottenham have not made a move, even after Morgan Gibbs-White. If they do, they've got a Thomas Frank factor, and Brentford would naturally encourage some kind of bidding war if they're to reluctantly let the player leave. Let's not forget Nottingham Forest had a bid rejected for 20 million for Yoane Wissa as well. But Newcastle are the ones really pushing, and Wissa wants to play Champions League football. He thinks it's the last chance at 29 in his career that he may have to do so. And Wissa also believes that last year, when Ivan Toney left for Al Ahly, and then in December, when Igor Thiago picked up a knee injury, there was a situation in both of those months, in the summer, in June, and also in December, when Brentford said to Wissa, if you stay the full season, you can leave for 30 million euros or 26 million pounds. And Wissa now feels that Brentford have reneged on that promise. And this is why it's relatively tense at the moment between player and club. So Brentford's position, we don't want to lose Mbeumo and Wissa in the same window. And Mbeumo goes to Manchester United, door relatively shut for Wissa. But Newcastle haven't given up. They got player buy-in. Wissa threatened not to play for Brentford again if he's left at the club. So let's wait and see if there's a breakthrough there. But at the moment, Wissa only wants to leave Brentford. He only wants to go and play Champions League football. And there's added urgency because of his age. It may be the last chance he has to play in that competition. The last and the first, of course.
And Ben, one of the true icons of the Bundesliga, Thomas Muller, he's going to Canada.
Yeah, an exclusive story broke on talkSPORT earlier in the day, now relatively confirmed throughout the media. Thomas Muller to Vancouver Whitecaps. It's a 2-year contract. Won't get into details because I'd have to use words like TAM and designated players, and I'd lose the entire audience. But effectively, they're doing between now and the end of the season on one wage budget, and then next season, they move into a designated player contract, which means they can pay him a little bit more. And what you do is you just weight it. So you get a bit less now and a bit more than you're expecting in your second year. And it all evens out to the money that allows them to sign Thomas Muller. He had an opportunity at Cincinnati, who held his discovery rights. In the last 24 hours, they were purchased off Cincinnati by Vancouver in a clear indication that this deal was developing. And now there's an agreement in principle with Muller. His contract is expected to start on August the 1st. So Thomas Muller, who was in America for the Club World Cup with Bayern, now moving to Canada and MLS with Vancouver Whitecaps.
What about Manchester United then? Of course, lots of interest around Man United all the time. Sesko, Watkins or somebody else?
Yeah, I think it's just those two at the moment. Nicholas Jackson was probably the somebody else, but the feeling is it's too expensive. So unless late in the window something changes with Jackson, or maybe if Chelsea pursue Alejandro Garnacho, there could be a scenario where that's revisited. But the door's shut on Jackson for now. Manchester United exploring 2 deals. Christopher Vivell is driving Benjamin Sesko, but the valuation there from Manchester United's perspective is 70 million, and Leipzig value the player at over 80 million euros. Newcastle also pushing, and Man United have to find budget from outgoings. So Newcastle have got a slight advantage in that one at the moment. But if Manchester United can get the player to wait and pick Manchester United, that one, even if it takes a bit more time, could be one possibility. And then you've got the proven Premier League experience of Ollie Watkins, which I'm told is a deal that's been put forwards by Ruben Amorim and is consistent with Cunha and Mbeumo, players for the now. Again, the fee there is £60 million or 70 million euros if they just met the asking price today. But some Manchester United sources feel that if Villa find find a replacement, their not for sale stance or their high price may drop, and later in the window that one might be possible. So right now there's two leading targets, Watkins and Šeško, and a healthy debate within the football club as to which one should be pursued as the leading choice in the coming days.
It'd be really interesting to see what way Manchester United go there. Šeško or Watkins both represent something very different as well. Be very interesting to see how Manchester United decide to pursue that. And Ben, Chelsea, Jorel Hato. We need this to happen. Tell me it's going to happen, please.
Yeah, I actually think we're just about an agreement in principle. I don't have the figures yet, but I'm told there's almost a verbal agreement now on everything between the clubs, certainly on the fixed fee and actually on the magnitude of the add-ons as well. It's just about the little things like the payment terms and how easy or hard the add-ons are to get. But we're pretty much at agreement in principle level. And I don't think that deal is in doubt now. I think Jorel Hato will be a Chelsea player. And interestingly, some that have looked at Hato have said centre-back, left-back, and he's played a lot of time at centre-back for Ajax, but Chelsea view him as a young left-back that can provide cover and competition for Marc Cucurella. So left-back first, but naturally could also play in the Levi Colwill position as well. So that one, I think, will be done this week. And then keep an eye, obviously, on Xavi Simons as well. It's not as advanced as the Hato deal, but there is confidence that that one can get over the line as well.
OK, Ben, good stuff. That is Ben Jacobs, our reporter here on talkSPORT. That's all thanks to Ladbrokes. Be 18 plus, begambleaware.org.
The big preview on talkSPORT with Ladbrokes. Supercharge your odds with our odds boost button. Selected markets applies to first £50 of stake. Terms apply. 18 plus, gambleaware.org.
And it is the Transfer Insiders with Nick Bright and Rory Jennings. I think we're going to have a bit of a Rumour Has It, Rory. You up for that?
Oh, yeah. Great tune.
All right, we'll get into that shortly. You're listening to talkSPORT. Yeah, Transfer Insiders there with Nick Bright and Rory Jennings. We're going to get into Rumour Has It in a sec, but first it is the League Cup preliminary round. Barnet taking on Newport County, and Ian Abrahams is there for us.
18 minutes gone, Barnet 0, Newport 0. Barnet have been the better side and had a couple of half chances, notably when Idris Kanu crossed on the right-hand side, headed back goalwards by Adam's senior. Joe Hugel just couldn't get on the end of it. Nothing really from Newport going the other way. Couple of things to point out. This goes under the category of, well, it is only the first game of the season. The Barnet media team couldn't write the word David properly, and when they had the team sheet with David Hughes on, they put D-A-I-V-D. I'm sure that will be changed come the weekend. And referee Darren Drysdale hasn't started very well either. The most obvious of obvious fouls on Kanu. He gave nothing. Thankfully, his linesman actually gave a free kick. But anyway, teething problems we can sort during the evening. 19 gone, Barnet 0, Newport 0.
Nice one, Moose. Thank you very much. It is the first game of the season. Let everybody bed in. Why not? Right, now it is time for this. Rumour has it. Yeah, this is our feature, Rumour Has It. My first go at this, actually, where me and Rory, we will hear some of the latest transfer rumours and decide if we think it's a good move for the player and the club. So joining us now is our producer, Connor. Evening, mate.
Evening, how are you?
Yeah, good. It's lovely to have you this side of the glass.
Yeah, well, thought I'd come on and
show us up.
Show the other side of it.
Show us how it's done.
No, you two are absolutely showing me how it's done. Don't worry about that. The first one I'll start off with, and this is quite an interesting one. Everton are linked with signing Manchester City midfielder Jack Grealish.
That can't happen.
Go on.
I personally won't. I really don't want it to happen. I will do everything to protest this.
Why?
Wow.
Because I rate Jack Grealish so highly, and I don't mean this in any disrespectful way to Everton. I rate Everton in terms of where they rank in the pantheon of great clubs in this country. Like what, the fifth most successful team in terms of league titles in the country?
Yeah, I think
Man City's last one took them above them, but that's how prestigious Everton are. But I'm sorry, Jack Grealish has to go to Napoli. Imagine him in Naples, swanning about, posing with red wine and cigars, looking moody in vineyards.
Yeah, I mean, look what it's done for McSauce.
He'll do so well. He'll do so well there, Jack Grealish. Like, he really would. I think that he needs one last move, top tier challenge. He's a wonderful football player. He's a great representation of footballers from this country, and I think we should export him to Naples to win a league title and be adored by the Napoli faithful.
Do you not even think a 1-year loan at Everton, play well, get yourself back out there in the Premier League, playing week in, week out, go back to Man City and reclaim your place?
It's a World Cup year. It's really important to remember that Jack Grealish is quite fortunate in as much as his position in the team, the place that he wants to play, it's one of the very few England positions that's actually up for grabs. Like Bukayo Saka on the other side, it doesn't matter how well anyone plays over that side, Jared Bowen, whoever it is, Bukayo Saka has that place nailed down in the way that Harry Kane has the centre-forward berth nailed down. The one place in the England team, one of the very few places in the England team that's actually up for grabs is Jack Grealish's position. And the way that you get into that England team, the way that you convince Thomas Tuchel to make sure that you are there is to be doing it to a level that's more impressive than Anthony Gordon, more impressive than Phil Foden. And the way that Grealish can do that is by going and winning a league in Naples.
I love Grealish. I think he's a good player, but I do think this could be a good move for him.
What, Everton?
Yeah, I do, because, like Connor's saying, I think, he needs to go there, even if it's for a season. Show everybody what he can do.
Champions League football, Nick.
Yes, but
he needs to play Champions League football. He needs to be I think Newcastle, Tottenham, but Naples would be the jewel in the crown.
I think he needs to find his level again, though, because, I think we are thinking about Jack Grealish of 4 seasons ago. Do you know what I mean? He's going to have, what boxers say, ring rust. He's going to need to, get match sharp again.
Imagine him in Naples.
He'll be great.
Belongs in Naples.
But what I will say is there is a bit of a history of like players moving from Manchester City across to Everton, isn't there? There's quite a few players that have done it.
That's true. But do you know what I've just thought?
Go on.
He'd be linking up with De Bruyne.
In Naples.
In Naples.
Are you his agent? Are you trying to get him?
I'd love to be. I love Jack Grealish. I really do. I love him. That's the kind of footballer that I want.
But also, can I just say, it'd be great to play in that new stadium as well.
Yeah.
The Bramley Moore Dock Stadium. That would be absolutely, maybe that's part of it as well. Who knows? But look, I just think it would be a good move for him, even if it's for a year, even if it's a loan deal, whatever it may be. But, go and do it. Show everyone what you can do. He thrived at Aston Villa where he was the main man.
Yeah.
I think, he likes being the main man. And at Everton, he'll probably be the main man.
Fair.
He walks into that Everton team, doesn't he? He becomes a star. And also, I can't believe he's 29. I mean, it feels
it's got to go well. It's got to, whatever this move is, it's got to go well.
Like you say, if he goes to Napoli, it might be the end for his time in the Premier League. Who knows? Moving on, one for Chelsea.
Oh.
They're looking at Morgan Rogers out of Aston Villa.
I'd love that.
Would you love that?
I'd love that. How highly do you rate Morgan Rogers?
I think Morgan Rogers is top quality.
If you look at the players that are currently playing outside of the big six teams, I think that you could easily say Morgan Rogers, Alexander Isak aside, because he's a special case. You could easily argue Morgan Rogers, Eberechi Eze.
Yeah.
Like, Morgan Rogers is one of the best players playing in the Premier League outside of the big six.
I would hate this move. It's just good.
I would love it.
As in, like, as an Arsenal supporter, I would hate this move because I think he's a brilliant player. I mean, let's be honest, is there anybody that Chelsea aren't being linked to at the moment, though?
No, but Morgan Rogers is exactly the kind of player that we should sign. Like, because I now have to adopt this mantra that the ownership have. The sporting directors want to sign young players who will increase in value that they could potentially turn a profit on. But Morgan Rogers ticks their boxes in as much as they want young players that will increase in value. But Ian Off ticks mine as well, because I want players that are going to bring silverware to Stamford Bridge, and I think he is a class act. Villa need money as well. Yeah. Tell me this one's going to happen, Connor.
It could happen. It is on the cards. If he does come into the team, Rory, who does he displace?
Well,
would you say?
That's the thing. It's not about displacing somebody, it's adding to the depth.
Yeah. Like, but he's going to want to come in and be, I'm starting.
If Chelsea's season goes as we hope it does, though, we'll end up playing 60 games next season. So depending on where you think his best position is, he will be competing with Enzo Fernandez for a place in the team. I mean, he could play slightly further forward, but he's never going to be a better player than Cole Palmer, I don't think. But this is a great problem, if we call it a problem. Yeah. Having depth like this is what makes teams potentially champions.
Yeah.
So get Morgan Rogers to Stamford Bridge as soon as possible.
I mean, it'd be a great move for you guys, honestly. But what you got? Is it Xavi Simons allegedly? You know,
that's to be coming in as well.
You know, that's close, isn't it?
It's very close.
You know, there's this Chelsea window. I can't get my head round it. I cannot get my head round it. Every player seems to either be linked with Chelsea or going to Chelsea, other than Alexander Isak.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's a shame. I mean, and I would love us to somehow try and put in some sneaky bid to get that one over the line as well.
Yeah. I'll give you one more, guys. Fit one more in.
Go on.
If Manchester United fail to secure Sesko or Ollie Watkins, they may turn their attention to Crystal Palace's Jean-Philippe Mateta.
I think, look, you know, I'm going to full disclosure. I'm quite enjoying the Man United struggle, right? As somebody who grew up in the 90s and noughties, that big rivalry between Arsenal and United.
I agree with you on that.
But I do think that this would be a good move for player and club, and I know a lot of United fans will probably turn their nose up at it because I think United fans, I don't want to say they're stuck in the past, but they're like, we're Manchester United.
Yeah.
You know, we don't want a Crystal Palace forward. You know, they're a lot of them turning their noses up at Ollie Watkins. But I think that Mateta, what he's done at Crystal Palace has been unreal. And I think if he goes to a club like Manchester United, now they've got Mbumo, now they've got Cunha, because one of the big problems they had last season, they couldn't create chances, right? They were creating hardly anything per game. Now, I think they've fixed that. If they put a target man up top, I think Mateta could do a job for them.
I think Mateta would be a great signing for them. Like, you know, earlier, I think when we were speaking to Ben Jacobs, he seemed to suggest that it was a binary choice. Is it Sesko and going with a younger player who will develop, or is it Ollie Watkins who is the answer for the here and now? Out of those two, if you then were to throw in Jean-Philippe Mateta, I'd agree with the Palace fans who sing that there ain't nobody better than Jean-Philippe Mateta. Boom, 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 boom.
Yeah.
I would, honestly. I think he's a class player, ready for a challenge at the top level. It's just a shame for Palace.
He's definitely one of those players who it took him a little while to get going, but now that he's found his feet last season,
the quality of goal. It's not only the volume of goals.
Yeah.
Like, the numbers were there for all to see, but it was the quality of goals. That goal he scored against Arsenal.
Yeah,
it's ridiculously good goal. Ridiculously good.
Yeah.
So no, I think Mateta would be a really good signing, and I mean, let's face it, it would elevate Manchester United beyond recognition because he is. I mean, Rasmus Højlund's probably the worst player to have ever led the line for that club in the Premier League era. I mean, that's the least controversial thing you'll ever hear. But no, that's not out there.
No.
So if you were to then bring in somebody like Mateta, playing with Mbumo, playing with Cunha, suddenly you're looking at a front line that scored 44 goals in the Premier League last season. Those players alone are all capable of of scoring. They're scoring 20 each.
Yeah, I'd have to agree. What do you think, though, if you're a Manchester United supporter and you're listening to this? 03717 223344 or 81089. You're listening to the Transfer Insiders on talkSPORT with Ladbrokes. 18 plus, begambleaware.org.
Aguero, Solskjaer, Deeney, Watkins. Sure, you know all about those last-minute goals, but have you heard the one about the on-loan goalkeeper who saved his temporary employers from disappearing out the Football League and into almost certain financial oblivion? Back in 1999, Carlisle United, managed by Nigel Pearson, were fighting to stay in the Football League. Carlisle's finances were precarious with a capital P that season, leading to a scenario where, with 3 games to go, they had to ask the FA to sanction an emergency loan deal to bring in a goalkeeper. Swindon Town's Jimmy Glass arrived at the club. His efforts in his first 2 games earned the Cumbrians 2 draws. Those vital points meant that Carlisle went into their final game of the Division 3 season, now League 2, needing to beat mid-table Plymouth Argyle in front of their own fans and hope their relegation rival Scarborough didn't win against Peterborough at home. The game at the McCain Stadium finished 1-1, and with the same scoreline at Brunton Park deep into injury time, Scarborough's fans invaded the pitch en masse, believing their Football League status was secure, convinced they'd done enough to stay up. However, there'd be one more plot twist. Carlisle won a corner in the dying seconds, and up came Jimmy Glass. In one of those you couldn't make it up moments, Glass scored from a rebounded header and was promptly swamped by teammates and thousands of fans who quite simply couldn't believe what they'd just witnessed. As for Jimmy Glass, he became an overnight celebrity, but he never played for Carlisle again, and his playing career never really kicked on after that defining moment. He took on various jobs outside of football before finding his way back into the sport as player liaison officer at Eddie Howe's Bournemouth, and most recently the general manager at non-league Wimborne. Not the fairy tale ending to one of the most Hollywood moments in football, but the name Jimmy Glass will live on forever as the scorer of that goal, arguably the most important in any club's history.
Transfer Insiders then with me, Nick Bright and Rory Jennings. We're going to talk Manchester United in a sec, but there has been a goal. Barnet against Newport County. Ian Abrahams. Moose, you there?
It's Barnet 0, Newport 1. We played 34 minutes. The goal came from Cameron Antwi a couple of minutes ago. It was a cracking effort from 25 yards out as well. Newport had been under the cosh. They had wasted one really good chance actually before that from Reinhold. But it's Antwi who's broken the debut, or broken the deadlock I should say here, as Barnet go close at the far post with a header wide. It's Barnet 0, Newport 1.
Moose, thank you very much, mate. He was giving it to the ref a minute ago, and everyone not being ready. But, maybe Moose needs to warm up a bit as well. Who knows? Right, is Rory Jennings alongside me, Nick Bright. Right, let's talk Manchester United then. We briefly touched on it with Ben a little bit earlier on, but Manchester United have done some good business so far. Cunha coming in. Very, very good deal. And Bumo took a while, but got it across the line. Another good bit of business. Now they just need to sort out the number 9. That is the big talking point at Old Trafford at the moment. Benjamin Sesko, Ollie Watkins, both linked with moves to Manchester United. What are your thoughts on both of those players, Rory, and who do you think would suit the role better?
If I was a Manchester United fan with regard to this debate, and it's a really interesting one because both strikers offer something very different in terms of what they do on the pitch, but also in terms of what they represent. Like Ollie Watkins, the pros and cons of Ollie Watkins. The pros are that he's Premier League proven. He's ready now. Arguably, he is at the peak of his powers today. Benjamin Sesko is not Premier League proven. He's young. He isn't necessarily at the best that he's going to be. So maybe it's more of a developmental one. But overall, I think Sesko has to be the option. I just think Sesko ultimately is a better player. The fact that there is a sell-on value, I don't even like talking like that and kind of adopting the accountant outlook. But Benjamin Sesko at 24 is going to be, say, were to sign a 3-year deal. Imagine the player that Manchester United have on their hands in 3 years' time. Compare that to if they were to sign Ollie Watkins. Imagine the player that they have on their hands in 3 years' time. It would be Ollie Watkins coming to the end of his career. It would be Benjamin Sesko finding his feet and coming into his prime. Equally, I mean, this often sounds harsh, and I don't want it to sound too harsh. But just to ask you the question then, Nick.
Go on.
How good is Ollie Watkins?
I think Ollie Watkins is a solid player, and a little bit like Jean-Philippe Mateta. Watkins has scored a bag of goals for Aston Villa. He has scored a bag of goals for England, important goals for England as well when he's been called upon. And I think he could do a job for Manchester United. I understand, because I think as football fans, unless somebody is kind of a world leader in the Premier League, it's really easy for us to say, or to turn our nose up at kind of a lot of these Premier League players, unless someone's an Eberechi Eze, unless someone's a Alexander Isak. It's really easy for us to go, yeah, Ollie Watkins, it's not exciting though, is it? Yeah, but he's better than what you got.
That's true. No, there's no doubt that Ollie Watkins is 10 times the player that Rasmus Højlund will ever be. There's no question about that. But the question that I will ask you again is he good enough for Manchester United? When you think about who Manchester United are, what they represent, when you think about the history of the Manchester United number 9, when you think about following in the footsteps of some of the greats who have ever played the game, Manchester United signing Ollie Watkins, is that not just normalising mediocrity at Manchester United again? It sounds to me like you rate him higher. At least the look you're giving me suggests that you rate him a lot higher than I do. I think he's a really, really good Premier League player who will have a glittering Premier League career. I would give everything I have to be as good as Ollie Watkins at football. I'm not being sneery towards him, but to play for Manchester United, for Manchester United to get back to their former glory, they need better than a run-of-the-mill good footballer who plays up front.
I get what you're saying, but I think where Manchester United are at the moment, just in terms of where they are and where they want to be, it's going to take time. It's not going to be an overnight thing. But let's get somebody who will know better than the two of us. Well, hopefully, anyway. Wayne Barton is the host of the Talking Devils podcast and joins us now. Evening, Wayne, mate.
Evening, gents. How you doing?
Yeah, not too bad. Right, you've just heard me and Rory having a little bit of a back and forth. Where do you stand on it? I'm assuming you would prefer Benjamin Sesko, but what are your thoughts on Ollie Watkins first and foremost?
I thought Rory made some good points there, but I think the point you were making there about where United are and where they want to be is the salient one, because United are going to need to take a step to get to where they want to be, and it's all right saying you want a great Manchester United side, and that wouldn't necessarily have Ollie Watkins in it. I agree with that, but they also need to take a step because they're nowhere near. They're one cycle away from being that kind of top-tier side anyway. So in terms of my preference over the two, well, it's clear that Amorim wants one of those two. I don't necessarily have a problem with his age because we've signed Teddy Sheringham, we had Zlatan for a period, and generally they did really well. I think it's actually a really good indication of transfer progress or transfer strategy progress to look at him, because United's big problem has been a lot of non-Premier League players in the last 10 years or so. So that kind of aspect of it I do agree with, but I do tend to fall on the side of Sesko being that little bit younger. My only concern over Sesko is that he's unproven. He's 24, which is quite old. I know he's very, very young for a footballer, but it's quite old to not make a step into the Premier League, to a major team and make a kind of impact, because those kind of top moves are generally made by the age of 20, 21 these days. And Sesko has been talked about for a couple of years, and no one's really taken a punt on him. So I do have a bit of a concern for all that. So Watkins does have a proven track record in that. So it's really the real concern for me is what Aston Villa will ask for him, because they were balking at paying £40 million for Rashford, and I don't really think there's that much difference between Rashford and Watkins, and for them to be asking for silly money for Watkins. So it's an interesting one. I know Villa obviously need to sell him as well for PSR. So my long-winded answer to that, to get around to it, is probably just my preference would be Sesko.
Yeah, I think Sesko as well. I think that would make more sense for you, Wayne. In terms of who Sesko is, you are right. The fact that he hasn't had the move yet is something to potentially concern you. But the amount of suitors that he had, it's important to acknowledge that Mikel Arteta, although he's got Victor Gyokeres, all of the noise was that
he wanted preferred.
Yeah. Mikel Arteta had identified Sesko as the solution to Arsenal's lack of goals, not Victor Gyokeres. So he's got fans in high places.
I think that's a good point, but there is also a dearth of number 9 quality out there at the moment. There are not a lot of great strikers. I know that's this move to a one-striker system that really makes the qualities of a number 9 stand out. And so there really are at a premium, and there are not that many good ones around. I don't think, for the price that Arsenal paid for Gyokeres, it's a big gamble at the age that he's at as well. To take, we're talking about where United need to go to, and I know this is a different conversation entirely, but for where Arsenal need Gyokeres to take them to, it's a big gamble that he's going to be the one to do that. But Sesko, he's that kind of unproven thing. Everyone can look at highlight reels and say that Højlund or Xerxes look good before we signed them. I'm not completely writing off Sesko.
But Wayne, the disaster would be, imagine in this situation, you're deliberating, is it Sesko, is it Ollie Watkins, and all of a sudden, Newcastle United decide to spend 70 million quid, go to Leipzig, put the money on the table, and Benjamin Sesko goes to Newcastle United. That dilly-dallying could really leave you hamstrung.
I'm with you on that. So this is the other thing, and this is, again, it's a knock-on kind of thing. Whereas I would want us to sign Sesko is not necessarily because of Newcastle being able to get him, it's because of what happens then, Newcastle letting Isak go to Liverpool, because that's the obvious destination. If you roadblock that, then they're more inclined to keep hold of Isak and not give in to his demands to move to Liverpool, because that'd be the worst case scenario for United. I know Liverpool have really strengthened anyway. We don't really want to give them, we're talking about a 3 or 4 year plan for United. We don't want Liverpool to kick that can 4 or 5 years down the road by strengthening their squad as well. So, Sesko makes more sense in that kind of roundabout thinking as well.
All right, just wait there for a moment, Wayne, because there's been another goal at Barnet. Let's get back to Ian Abrahams.
Barnet 0, Newport 2, and Newport obviously this season are not going to just do ordinary goals. Cameron Antwi from 25 yards hit the first, the second by Michael Reindorf, probably better. Similar distance out, he's curled it beautifully beyond Joe Wright into his top left-hand corner. It was an unbelievable goal. We were right behind it, and you can see the bend on the ball as it left the goalkeeper with absolutely no hope of keeping it out. Barnet have arguably been the better team in this first half. They look like going into half-time 2 down. Barnet 0, Newport 2.
Nice one, Moose. Thank you very much. Right, Transfer Insiders, Rory, Jennings, Nick Bry. We've got Wayne Barton, host of the Talking Devils podcast with us. And Wayne, just before we let you go, I wanted to talk about outgoings, actually. Garnacho, on the way out.
Yeah, it seems that way. They could say the same for Sancho as well. It seems like it's taken a long time to get moving. Garnacho's a funny one because they were talking about Napoli and 60 million, weren't they, in January? And that price has gone down to 50 and then again to 40. And I just think for that price, I know it's all complicated with the PSR nonsense, but for that price, United would be paying twice as much to get a player of Garnacho's quality in, or potential, I should say. I also should say as well, I mean, I know you want to talk about Garnacho there, but you talking about striker as a priority earlier on. I actually don't think that is. I think that the goalkeeper is the priority for United. It's a red flag for me because I think if you don't replace Onana urgently, that goalkeeping situation could cost the manager his job by November.
Who'd you go for? Who'd you go for then?
I don't know. That's the thing. I just think that Onana's such a liability, and the number of shots that he concedes, soft shots that go in, is alarming for a top club to have. I know he has his qualities. I'm not saying he's a completely bad goalkeeper. I just think for the style that United want to play, the things that he was brought in to do, I just think that we concede an awful lot of goals. He breeds a lot of uncertainty in the defence. And we saw by the calamitous goal we conceded in the Europa League final, a lot of that was down to Onana. Too many shots go in. He plays too overconfidently for a player of his quality. And United need someone who has, I mean, the big talk, ironically enough, is Martinez. But I don't think that he's too erratic as well. Do you know what I mean? He's too much of a personality. United just need a steady Eddie like Edwin van der Sar, just came in, was very unruffled, did uncomplicated goalkeeping and just stuck to his job, really, rather than trying to be something that he wasn't or trying to be the 11th player in the team. But back on Garnacho, anyway, I'm of the opinion that United would be paying twice as much to bring in a player of his potential. I mean, you can see that from the numbers being quoted, but this is the problem with PSR, right? I mean, Rory will see the same with Chelsea. It happens with loads of Chelsea's players and with loads of different clubs' players where you're seeing valuations skewed all over the place because really what it means is how much they can be multiplied by over the next 3 or 4 years, and it just makes a nonsense of a player like Garnacho, who scored in the FA Cup final last season. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. He's got such a high potential. He's got the kind of character to play for United. I know he doesn't suit that system, but let's say the manager's out by December, and then you're going to really regret letting a player like Garnacho go for such a cheap fee. So that's my big concern with that.
Yeah, but I guess the relationship is too far gone now. Listen, Wayne, thank you very much for coming on. That's Wayne Barton, host of the Talking Devils podcast. You're listening to the Transfer Insiders on talkSPORT with Ladbrokes, 18+, begambleaware.org. And next up, we will turn our attention to one of the newly promoted teams in Burnley. Right, listening to the Transfer Insiders then here on talkSPORT. Nick Bright, Rory, Jennings. It's half-time in the League Cup preliminary round. Barnet against Newport County. Here's Ian Abrahams.
Yeah, just a few seconds of the break. It's Barnet 0, Newport 2. Two cracking goals from Newport. The first scored by Cameron Antwi in half an hour, 25 yards out, thumping the ball home. The second, though, was an absolute beauty as well. Michael Reindhoff with a shot. He must have been out 25 yards out on his right foot, and he's curled it spectacularly beyond Joe Wright, who barely moved into the top corner net. The likes of Mick Harford, who's the Director of Football at Luton. We've got the Cambridge manager, Neil Harris, here today. Barry Fry, former Barnet manager, and now very much Director of Football at Peterborough, where he's been for 30 years. They were all watching the first half, and at the break, it's Barnet 0, Newport 2. Winners, by the way, play Millwall in the first round proper.
Nice one, Moose. Thank you very much. And, of course, we'll keep you across that match when the second half gets underway. Right, I did say we were going to talk Burnley, so let's bring in our next guest, Natalie Bromley, who is a podcaster. No, nay, Never Burnley Podcast. That's the name of the Great name, by the way, Natalie. Love that.
It's the East Lancashire Derby chant. Burnley sing that about our rivals and vice versa. So it's not. I can't claim too much credit for the originality. I'm sorry.
It must have sounded great in my southern accent. Then you know.
Yeah, you're really good at that Lancashire spirit.
Right then, we'll have to start, Natalie, of course, with the big news that's just breaking. James Trafford to Manchester City completed today. 27 million. You've got your head in your hands.
Yeah, it's a sad one. I mean, listen, we knew this was coming. We nearly lost him last year. We ended up keeping him for a second season in the Championship, which, quite frankly, I think was the best thing he could have done. He had a really challenging season in Vincent Kompany's Premier League campaign. He promoted him way too soon. He went from playing in League One, winning the under-21 Euros with England, and then facing Man City in the Premier League the very next game. And that was just, everybody could see that was, a really difficult leap for him. And he had a very tough time. So last season will have done his career an awful lot of good. He kept the number one jersey and had a spectacular season under Scott Parker in the Championship. We knew he was going, but it's still a loss to have such a talented player when you're about to go into a Premier League season where, let's face it, you're going to be defending a lot. Is a tough challenge, but made a really good profit on him. And as long as we spend that wisely on a new keeper, then it's a good bit of business, I think, for us.
Yeah, and in terms of players coming in, I think there was a wise decision to bring in Kyle Walker. I think that was a clever one, and it feels like you're trying to make some manoeuvres with regard to the players that are free transfers. Like I saw at one point, Dominic Calvert-Lewin was linked. At one point, Jamie Vardy was linked. At one point, Callum Wilson was linked. What do you think you need to have any chance of survival next year?
I mean, I say this, with a little bit of hope. I think you have to be realistic and appreciate that it's highly likely that the three promoted sides will go back down again. I know Leeds and Sunderland are signing a lot of players, but I think what Burnley are trying to do is keep the core spine of the squad that got promoted together, which I think is another mistake that Kompany made 2 years ago. He basically got rid of the entire squad that won the Championship and then started afresh, and it took us way too long to gel. So Scott Parker will have a core of a team there that will have the experience in the dressing room. So I think what we need to do with that is have one eye on a likely relegation. And I'm not being negative, I'm being realistic here. So I think what the Burnley board need to do is, and this is obviously what they are doing, is try and balance some experienced free transfers where they can. Those players who know the Premier League inside out will be able to bring some much needed advice to a very young squad, and just be able to dig deep in the team, in the games where we really need to. And then balance that with some signings for some players who will probably only be with us for a season, but who will catch the eye of the European market and will probably be sold on again next season for profit. That's how you balance the books at Burnley when the players are your biggest asset, and that's how you keep the financial rules in check as well. So I think that the club are doing exactly what they need to do to keep Burnley's business model very much intact.
Do you think that it will go better than last time you were in the Premier League under Vincent Kompany?
I think the result will probably be the same.
Oh, no.
No, listen, you've got to be realistic here. The last two, if you look at last season where you've got Leicester, Southampton and Ipswich, much bigger clubs than Burnley being miles away from being able to survive, then you've got to look at that and understand where the Premier League is in terms of competitiveness for relegation. And I say to people, if Burnley are going to survive, who's going to go down in their place? And I think to have a really meaningful relegation battle where promoted sides get to stay up, you need it to be 3 out of, say, 5 or 6 teams. You need a real battle at the bottom. And at the moment, there's probably only, well, there's the 3 promoted sides and maybe 1 or 2 where you're hopeful that they will be dragged into a battle. But the Premier League is strong at the moment, so we have to be mindful of that. I think we'll be more in games. I thought the strategy Vincent Kompany adopted in the Premier League was, I think, not the right one. I'm trying to be respectful here as much as I can and not come on and slate Vincent Kompany. I thought it was naive from a tactical perspective. The last time we were up, we changed the entire squad. He wouldn't change his style of play and do the really gritty stuff that Burnley needed to survive, which I think was perhaps Vincent Kompany managing his own career rather than the team. I think that's probably fair to say. Scott Parker is not an ego-driven manager. He doesn't care about popularity, he doesn't care what people say about him. He will do what is needed to do. I think Scott Parker's got a point to prove in the Premier League from previous clubs he's managed. And I think he's way more defensive. And that was a criticism that I think we perhaps levied on him in the Championship, but one that I think is the right strategy in the Premier League. So I think we'll be closer. I think we'll be in games more, and perhaps we'll mount a survival fight towards the end of the season. Let's see.
And the way that you will do it, if you do end up surviving, the way that you will do it will be through your ridiculously stingy and miserly defence. Like it was nearly the best defence in history, wasn't it? Like what Scott Parker managed to achieve. Like the defence was the bedrock of your promotion. And if you survive, it will be the bedrock of your survival. In a way, I feel like it sets you up in quite a positive way, because you know when teams come up and they've scored 100 goals in that division, you're never going to replicate that. Whereas your defensive solidity could potentially be replicated. Do you feel like you're going to be really resolute and basically hope to catch teams out?
Yeah, I feel like we've kind of got a bit of a blend here. We're returning more to the Burnley side that you saw under the Sean Dyche decade. Very resolute, very defensive, very solid, and a team that plays together, and a really solid, atmosphere between the players and the fans and the manager. Everybody's on the same page, but perhaps more entertaining and more towards the Vincent Kompany years and perhaps the Sean Dyche years were. So I think you've got Scott Parker probably sits in the middle of the 2 Burnley managers who he came after. We have to acknowledge the fact that this Burnley defence are going to face much more sophisticated attacks than they saw in the Championship. That's a given. Attackers and wingers are faster, they are slicker, they can carve open a defence. And I think one of the challenges we may face is that before Kyle Walker came in, it was a defence that's not really had much experience in the Premier League. But Scott Parker is coaching them, and he's setting up his teams to be able to soak up that pressure. And it's not a kind of defence that is just parking the bus and everybody, 10 men again, behind the ball. It is a little bit more sophisticated, that, and it is a little bit more cautious, but it is a bit more attacking when it needs to be. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to seeing Scott Parker's Premier League football. I really think he's going to give us a really good chance of trying to get something from games.
All right, although is it a case of head going against the heart though?
I don't know. I think maybe my head and my heart are both on the same page. My heart has been ripped to the core by watching Premier League football for way too long, so I'm not entirely sure that I can love that anymore. We've had about 2 seasons where we've managed to battle up. The rest of it's just been trying to battle to 17th. It can suck the soul out of you a little bit, can the Premier League? But yeah, it is what it is. You get to enjoy enjoy is a very loose word. You get to go through these seasons. You get to play in the Premier League. You get a massive financial boost when you're a club like Burnley. And guess what? If you get relegated, you get to go and have a fantastic 100-point season in the Championship and come back.
That's one way of looking at it. I love that. Always look on the bright side. Natalie, thank you very much. That is Natalie Bromley, who is from the No Nay Never podcast, a Burnley podcast.
No, never, no more. Do you think I can get away with it? The Lancashire?
I don't know, do it again.
No, never, no more. I'm not allowed to say the next bit. It's very hostile to Blackburn Rovers, but
yeah, but I mean, well, yeah, you probably can't get away with it because of your Cockney accent as well. I feel like that's holding you back more than the next bit of the song. Right, anyway, it is the Transfer Insiders, Nick Bright, Rory, Jennings. We've got loads more for you shortly. You're listening to talkSPORT.
Cricket balls are red, baseballs are white, American footballs are brown, and tennis balls are yellow. We don't even think about it really, but the story behind the tennis ball is actually quite interesting and even involves Sir David Attenborough. I know, here's the tale. Tennis has its roots in 12th century France when people used to make balls from all sorts. Cork, wool, chalk, animal fur and even human hair. Uniformity was found centuries later when people started making balls out of something called vulcanized rubber, invented in the US.
There you are, listening to the Transfer Insiders then with me, Nick Bright and Rory Jennings. We will be discussing teams we think may struggle in the Premier League this season. But first, it's an all-American talkSPORT Daily Podcast takeover today. In this special edition, join Ak and Barak for a look into the world of American heavyweights. Long gone are the glory years of Ali, Foreman, Holyfield and Tyson. But the question is, can America still produce another big heavyweight hero? Well, let's have a listen to what the guys had to say.
It's not just the eyeball test anymore. No. You have to prove it against credible opponents. And I honestly, I would have to spend a week going through footage of heavyweights prospects. Maybe there is somebody out there, but right now, contending on a level where it'll come across my desk, I haven't seen anybody that'll beat or Alexander Usyk or Caballero. Not right now. Barack, as much as I like to bet, there's nothing being bet on this one. I'm not doing it.
Well, that's all in today's edition of the talkSPORT Daily Podcast, available on the talkSPORT app via your favourite podcast provider. I mean, it's not just Americans who are struggling to beat up Alexander Usyk. Alexander Usyk doesn't stop beating up our guys either, Rory, eh?
No, I mean, he's a true icon. Like, where do you think his place now ranks amongst the true greats? Like, I mean, the true greats, like Muhammad Ali, Lennox Lewis, Mike Tyson. Where do you believe he ranks in that kind of conversation?
It's such a difficult question to answer, and I'm not trying to sit on the fence or swerve your question. It's just when people talk about someone from a particular era going up against somebody from this era and vice versa, it's hard to compare because the fighters now are so much fitter. There's so much more technique. There's diets. There's this. There's that. There's sports science behind everything they do. So, like, it's hard for me to answer your question.
Okay,
I'll be honest.
Let's play a game, right?
Okay, go on.
I'm going to say 4 boxers, and you have to leave one out. So one of these boxers, I'm going to name 4 icons, and you have to say one's got to go. Is the game, right? One's got to go.
All right.
So the 4 icons are Usyk, Lewis, Ali, Tyson.
I knew you were going to say Tyson.
So someone's got to go. Who is the worst of those 4?
Oh, I'm going to get absolutely slated no matter what I say here, ain't I? This is a stitch up.
Who do you believe it to be?
I am going to... Oh, that is so difficult. I'm going to...
Right, Lennox Lewis, true icon.
Yeah.
Lennox Lewis possibly beats them all. So Lennox Lewis is in.
But he's undisputed.
Muhammad Ali's Muhammad Ali.
Yeah, this is the problem.
So then it becomes Usyk or Tyson.
You can't leave out Mike Tyson. But I'm going to have to leave out Usyk. But it's an impossible question to answer.
Tyson never avenged a defeat.
No,
he never avenged a defeat.
No, but
and Tyson never got off the canvas to win a fight.
Yeah,
Does that count?
But no, because he was ferocious, wasn't he? The youngest.
He defines an era.
The youngest world champion as well. Look, we could be here all day talking about this, but we need to talk about football, I guess. But make sure you listen to the talkSPORT Daily Podcast for better opinions than mine on boxing. Although that was a stitch-up question.
You swerved it well.
Well, I tried.
The bob and weave. You've got the bob and weave, mate.
Float like a butterfly, sting like a bee. Right, let's talk about the other end of the table. We've chatted about teams at the top. Let's talk about teams who we feel might potentially be at the bottom. So far, very quiet transfer windows for Burnley, who we were just talking about, West Ham and Brentford. But what I want to do is I want to ask you, because you spoke about, I think Sunderland you chatted about on yesterday's show, right?
Brilliant what they've been doing.
I think they've done brilliant work. Yeah, I agree. I think Granit Xhaka coming in is a really, really good signing for them. And I'm not saying that just because I'm an Arsenal supporter. I think he's a brilliant player.
Mate, why didn't you sign him instead of Norgard?
I mean, it's a good question. But we did get Norgard for a decent fee, to be fair. But bottom end of the table, then let's talk our bottom 3. What do you think?
I think Brentford are gone.
I agree.
I think Brentford are gone, which is great news for many reasons. But it's great news because it means that this perilous situation that we've had, which is the 3 promoted teams always going back down. We've had it for 2 consecutive seasons now. We don't want that to be a hat trick. We don't want that to become a thing. We don't want the disparity between the Premier League and the Championship to grow ever greater.
I don't think it's a controversial thing for me to say or not, but like I don't want Brentford to go down. I know you probably do.
Why don't you? Do you care if they go? What does the Premier League losing Brentford?
I'm not going to cry about it, all right? That's not what I mean, but like I quite like the club. I think they've been a good addition to the Premier League. Decent stadium. They bring through great players. Lots of great players have played for Brentford and gone on to various other clubs. And
I'd say all of that is applicable to whoever replaces them, though.
Really?
You say great club, great support, great stadium. Firstly, I'd say none of the above is true.
You're obviously going to say all of this.
Secondly, I would say that whoever ends up replacing them, so let's say Leeds United stay up, the Premier League is a far better place having Leeds United in it. I don't like Leeds, of course I don't. I'm a Chelsea fan. But everybody has to admit, even Chelsea fans of a particular era who really do detest Leeds United and have Leeds United, some would say, as our biggest rival. Even that genre of Chelsea fan, my father, for example, would tell you that Leeds United in the top flight is their rightful place. That the top flight is a better place culturally a better place, more exciting, more inspiring place. You want Leeds in the Premier League.
Yeah, I agree. But they have a great stadium for a different reason, because it's one of those fantastic older stadiums. It's not exactly state of the art at Ellen Road, but it's a fantastic, great old stadium. So you've got Brentford in your bottom three.
Yeah,
go on.
I think Burnley will go.
Burnley,
sadly, I think Burnley will go because I like Scott Parker, I like Burnley the club, and I like Natalie, who we just spoke to.
Yeah,
but I do think Burnley will go. Now I think it's anyone's. In this position now. It could be anyone. And I think that there is a world where somebody very unlikely gets sucked in.
Really?
Yeah.
Have you got any...
I can tell you who I'd like it to be.
Go on.
I could see a world where West Ham United under Graham Potter gets sucked into this.
Really?
I think it's unlikely. I don't think it's the most likely, like the obvious most likely thing to say here, if you just want to be safe and correct. The fact that 3 have gone back down for 2 consecutive years... the likelihood is only 1 will survive this year, if that.
Yeah.
So the likelihood is 2 promoted teams will go down, 1 will survive at best.
Yeah.
I actually believe that both Leeds and Sunderland will survive, and that's what I want to happen because they're both big, prestigious clubs. So get those 2 to survive. Somebody has to take their place. Who is it? I mean, who is it? It's Brentford will go.
Yeah.
Burnley will go. Now it's +1. Who's your tip for relegation?
Well, I do think Leeds, and I know Leeds have got a lot of supporters out there who are probably searching me now online, trying to find me to send me all sorts of stuff. But I do think it will be Leeds. But if not, because there is a chance that Leeds could survive. I agree with you on the first 2. I think it will be Burnley and Brentford. We could be eating humble pie, And
do you think Wolves?
But this is where I was going to go. I think Wolves are a likely suitor for that 3rd relegation spot, and maybe you threw in a bit of a wild card with West Ham. How do you feel about Everton? It's a bit of a wild card.
I don't think Moyes goes down. I don't think they'll go down. I think Moyes is capable of keeping Everton up. Also, the enthusiasm that they'll have playing in a new stadium. It's not easy playing in a new stadium, and it comes with pitfalls in itself. But I do think that there'll be a vibe. There'll be an enthusiasm.
Obviously,
I don't think they'll go. What about just to ask you a question? What sort of season do you think Nottingham Forest are going to have?
It's an interesting question. I if they would have lost Morgan Gibbs-White, if Morgan Gibbs-White would have went, I would have said that they would be in the mix as well. But I don't think they'll have a season as good as they had last season. That is an anomaly, if you ask me. And it's, again, a shame that they couldn't quite get over the line in terms of getting into the Champions League. But I think they'll be mid-table. I think they'll be,
Do you really?
Yeah. I think they'll be somewhere in the middle.
I could see Forest having quite a poor season.
What makes you say that?
I just think that there is quite a destabilising. It's been a destabilising summer. They massively overperformed last year. Like, if you think about their performances last year, individual performances, you think about the performances of the keeper. Like Milenkovic was one of the signings of the summer, one of the best centre halves in the league last year. I just think that a lot of players played out of their skin. Nuno Espirito Santo got it so right, and in a similar way to the way he got it at Wolves, and then it changed. I just could see a world where Nottingham Forest have a difficult season.
Just on Sunderland quickly, because I'm just looking, and something that's not that it's gone under the radar. It was reported widely when it happened, but maybe it's just slipped some people's minds because they've done a good bit of business incoming. But they have lost Joe Bellingham. That's quite a big loss to them. So it's not like I guess what I'm trying to say is it's a bit of an unknown in terms of like how this.
No, they've lost players, but they've used the money from the sales that they've put in. So they've sold, but they've spent the money wisely.
They've made some good signings.
They haven't sold players and tried to profit. They've sold players to reinvest the money.
But my question is, we don't always necessarily know how an 11's going to gel. We've seen in the past. Remember when Nottingham Forest first came up?
Yeah, and they bought about 30 players.
And it was a problem. Yeah. But we've seen it in with numerous teams. Sometimes they've got great players, but they just don't necessarily gel.
Yeah, there is a chance. Of course, look, I don't think Sunderland are gonna. I don't think Sunderland are going to have a surprise season in as much as they'll be pushing for top half or anything like that. I think it's going to be a difficult, arduous season. But I do think that the way that they've run, the ambition from the Dreyfus family who run the club, they've appointed a very exciting manager. And I think that they know that They've been promoted, perhaps in a season where they didn't expect it. They've done it early, and they're now looking to really solidify themselves as a Premier League side. And signing players like Granit Xhaka, it's so impressive. Like, Granit Xhaka has swapped Champions League football for Sunderland. He has decided to swap Erik ten Hag for Sunderland. He has decided that the project at Sunderland is something that he wants to be part of, and he signed a 3-year deal there. So he obviously believes that something's going on at Sunderland, and I believe that there is a world where they could have a very impressive season. And again, in a similar, I'd extend the same courtesy that I just paid to Leeds United about their place in the Premier League, having prestigious, historic clubs in the Premier League. Everything I said about Leeds United is totally true of Sunderland.
Yeah, I mean, huge fan base, football mad place as well. So what was your bottom three again, just before we wrap this?
I mean, it's unlikely, so I'm throwing in one left field one. My left field one is Potter's West Ham.
All right, okay. Well, I will say, although this texter here says Brentford aren't going anywhere, or me and Rory both disagree with that, unfortunately for you. I'm going Burnley, Brentford, and just for a bit of fun then, I'll say Wolves. Why not? Let's anger the Wolves fans as well while we're at it. Right, you're listening to the Transfer Insiders on talkSPORT with Ladbrokes, 18+, begambleaware.org. Next up, Tottenham Hotspur is our focus, and we were just talking about the man, Morgan Gibbs-White. Where do they go now that he's signed that new long-term deal back in a mo?
Live football, it's what we do best. Plays it across the face of goal, and it's in! Brentford equalise!
Onto his right foot, shoots straight on, it's in! Tanto Alambe turns in Jack Diamond's shot, and Stockport are level!
Oh, what a hit! Harley Mills puts the push ahead!
Luton Town find themselves in the bottom three, back-to-back relegation.
Been here many times before, and I know that this club can get itself back into the Championship again.
Cardiff are relegated to the third tier of English football for the first time in 22 years.
Comes out to the edge of the area. Oh, what a goal! Miles Hippolyte, AFC Wimbledon are back at League One level after 3 years away. Dig to the far post, Talavera! He's headed it in! Incredible! Plays it across the face of goal, and it's in! Brentford equalise! And only one national radio station takes the EFL seriously, and that's this one.
Oh yeah, that sounds good, doesn't it? League 1 and League 2 gets underway this Saturday, and talkSPORT is very much the place to be. We kick off Friday night with live League 1 commentary between Luton Town and Wimbledon. That's on talkSPORT 2. Then Saturday 12:30, Cardiff host Luton Town on talkSPORT 2 before Adrian Durham takes you around the grounds, keeping you up to date with all the 3 p.m. kickoffs in League 1 and League 2. Right, the League Cup preliminary round then. Barnet versus Newport County. It was 2-0 last we heard to Newport County. Ian Abrahams, is that still the case?
It is 13 minutes into the second half. Barnet 0, Newport County 2. Those 2 first half goals. Cameron Antwi with a volley from just outside the penalty, and then that absolutely wondrous strike from Michael Reindorf, a right-footed curling effort from 25 yards into the top corner. It was, I've already put, it's one of the goals of the season. We're only on night 1 of the season. Barnet have had an Idris Kanu effort go over in the beginning of the second half. Might have a chance here. Hugel goes in. It's somehow smuggled away. In fact, I thought the referee given a penalty. He's not given a free kick against Hugel. But Barnet need a goal back, and they need one back quickly here. Winners play Millwall in the first round in 2 weeks' time. It's Barnet 0, Newport 2.
Lovely stuff. Thank you very much, Moose. Right, let's talk Tottenham then, and let's bring in our next guest, Chris Cowlin, host of the Spurs Chat podcast. Evening, Chris.
Nick, Rory, good evening to you.
How are you?
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good question, actually. How are you doing after this Morgan Gibbs-White news?
Well, Spurs just need to move on from this, and we need to act fast now in this transfer window because, you know, the season is coming round thick and fast, and there's 34 days left of the window, 15 days to that PSG game in the Super Cup, and 18 days until the Premier League season starts. So we need to move quick. We've only really signed one first-team player that walks into this starting 11. You know, officially we've signed 5, but there's only one first-team player. So Spurs need to move quick. You know, Morgan Gibbs-White, of course, it is very, very disappointing that deal fell through, but it is now about what we do next. You know, we're Europa League winners. We're now playing Champions League football, and we need a Champions League squad. We need a squad to do better in the Premier League. And Daniel Levy, Thomas Frank, Vinay Venkatesham, the new CEO, they've all come out and said the same thing. They've all been very aligned in saying the same thing. We want to be fighting on all fronts. If you want to be fighting on all fronts, we need to go out there and spend money and build this squad and give Thomas Frank the best possible chance of finishing in a decent position and trying to win Spurs a trophy yet again, because I feel like we're miles away at the moment. I feel like we had a lot of work to do in the window when it started. And when you look at all of the teams around us, not just the top teams, but the teams finished mid-table, they've all done really, really good business, and Premier League games are never, never easy.
Can I ask you, Chris, your feelings about this Morgan Gibbs-White issue, the press conference that we saw? Do you have any resentment towards what Forest have done, towards Marinakis? Are you disappointed with Tottenham that maybe they didn't pursue this? Because I felt like Tottenham had done nothing wrong. Tottenham are the victims in this. But for some reason, they seem happy enough to let it slide. Just overall, your feelings on this Gibbs-White saga, it's mind-blowing, isn't it? It's an unbelievable interview.
I feel like Tottenham put a offer in to, actively, have that release clause, done. But there may have been things in that release clause that Spurs didn't activate. So none of us will ever know what is actually in that release clause. But I do feel there is part of this where the player and the agent have played Spurs, and they have got exactly what they wanted. The agent has obviously got a very good fee out of it. The player has got more money. I felt like it was very, very cringy having the Forest chairman standing next to Gibbs-White when he did that interview, and he mentioned his name 4 times. I found that very, very cringy indeed. But he's not our player. It's not to be. It would have been great having him in the squad. It would have made a real difference to this Tottenham Hotspur starting 11. And that's where I'm focused on now, because we've played 3 friendlies. And, that 0-0 draw against Luton on Saturday. I know at this stage of pre-season, a lot of it is about fitness. But, you can also see how a team is set up and how a team is playing. It was 0-0. I'm in Hong Kong right now. I'm talking to you at near 4 o'clock in the morning from Hong Kong, because I've just gone to the Tottenham training session ahead of this Arsenal game on Thursday. And even in the training session, they split the teams up into 2, and that finished 0-0 as well. And the creativity just isn't there at the moment, and we need that number 10. We also need a number 6. We also need a left back. Destiny Doggy is now injured yet again. And in my opinion, we need a game changer still. We need a striker. We need a goal scorer. So there is a lot to do. And I'm not talking about just squad players. I'm talking about, 3-4 additions, really good players coming into this team. We finished 17th in the Premier League last year. I know Postecoglou, literally put his job on the line by prioritising the Europa League and, obviously got sacked for it. But we cannot keep replacing managers every 18 months. So, eventually we need to do things the right way. And there is a lot of concern right now amongst the Tottenham Hotspur fan base that we haven't got deals done. And as I keep mentioning, that all the teams around us, including our biggest rivals, have got some really good deals done this summer.
Well, firstly, I should say, thanks for staying up for us. 4 a.m. in Hong Kong.
That's a true pro, Chris Cowley. He's a main man of Tottenham.
Commitment. We love that. But the second thing I wanted to just, add to what you were saying there, it feels to me like all of that feel-good factor that, Spurs garnered off the back of winning, a European trophy, which it was an amazing achievement. The parade was to see. I was envious as an Arsenal supporter. You can only imagine, if the shoe was on the other foot, imagine how you would feel. Well, that's exactly how I felt. But it feels like that. It's not that the feel-good factor is completely gone, but it does feel that Spurs fans are now starting to think about, well, we did really badly in the Premier League last season. Yes, we may have won the European trophy, but we need to make sure we're not in the same position next year in the league.
Nick, you're absolutely right. And, for me to be on this morning with an Arsenal and a Chelsea fan talking about Tottenham's, transfer activity or lack of it, you couldn't write it, could you? But you're absolutely right. In terms of league position, there is not a Tottenham fan out there that was not concerned about the league position. Of course, trophies were way overdue at Spurs. We all love Postecoglou of what he's done. He will go down as a club legend for delivering that trophy for us. But the league position is very important. But it's not only that. We will be playing Champions League football. That PSG game in the Super Cup is 15 days away. And we have got the same squad virtually as what we had last season. There is a lot to do in this transfer window. And, the games are going to come thick and fast. Thomas Frank, what I don't want to see Spurs do is put too much pressure on Thomas Frank because he's known for getting the best out of players. I don't want Daniel Levy in the board basically saying to him, we'll get the best out of some of these players that, Postecoglou perhaps didn't. And, we had a lot of injuries last year. That was not an excuse. That was a fact that we had so many injuries and, we couldn't fight on all fronts. But I still feel like we are there. We can't fight on all fronts with this squad. He needs help. We hear from Fabrizio Romano saying that, we're working hard on transfers. Your own Ben Jacobs says that, he believes that we're going to sign 2 to 3 players in this window. We can't keep hearing as Spurs fans that we're interested in players or we're linked to players. We need, the news of we have signed players, really decent players as well, not squad players, players to walk into this team. Because as you both know, the Europa League and the Champions League are 2 very, very different competitions with the deepest respect. So to play the likes of PSG and all of the other teams in the Champions League, they're going to be very, very hard matches. So
with that in mind, Chris, what are we talking about? I mean, from the outside looking in, you go João Palhinha and Mark Gahey, and suddenly the window has a completely different complexion. Can you see a world where you get those 2 over the line? No, I can't. João Palhinha, I can see that. Well, it's honesty. It's honesty, isn't it? And I think that the big thing here is Spurs need to do things in a different way because we haven't. We'll never seem to break that wage clause that we have at the club. And, if you want to be signing top players, perhaps that does need to change at the football club. And, we should be aiming for the very, very best. We've just won the Europa League. We're in the Champions League. We've fast-tracked our way into this competition. We were never going to get there via the league. So we should be always aiming. Spurs should always be aiming for the very, very top players. And my concern is that a lot of these players that have moved to the Premier League from abroad or within the Premier League, a lot of the other Premier League teams have got the deals done. And it is a concern. And, we haven't got long left in this window, 34 days, to get real top quality in to really fight on all fronts. Because, Daniel Levy's come out and said that 17th is not good enough for a finish in the Premier League for Tottenham. Well, with this squad, what do they expect? They can't expect a top 5 finish. They can't expect a Champions League finish.
with the squad that we've got right now.
All right, Chris, you're an absolute trooper, mate, for staying up for us. We appreciate that. That's Chris Cowlin, host of the Spurs Chat podcast. It's an interesting time for Spurs. They need reinforcements through the door, that's for sure. And it'd be really disappointing missing out on Morgan Gibbs-White, that is for sure. Right, you are listening to the Transfer Insiders, Nick Bright and Rory Jennings on talkSPORT.
Definitely need a striker. You know, we scored, 44 goals last season, which is just a ridiculously poor return.
Now the Šeško deal is going to come down to whether the price drops, because Leipzig still want in excess of 80 million euros. Manchester United's valuation is much closer to 70 million euros. But I get the impression this is a big week in the pursuit of a number 9.
Is it on the table that Man United have an opportunity to sign Ollie Watkins, or at least in for him?
If the stars align and Villa either have their valuation met or alternatively bring in a replacement, not for sale might not mean not for sale.
I think a midfielder is imperative. I think someone who can really stabilise. There does need to be some time for the attackers to reserve energy for the attacking.
What Bruno Fernandes does is prove that no matter what the situation, no matter the manager, no matter where you ask me to play, no matter who's struggling for confidence, I will do my job.
Bruno Fernandes does not fit into the Ruben Amorim system.
There's a refreshing directness to Cunha's game, isn't there? There's, which, look, we've lacked, and it's good to see.
You go, we've upgraded. What I am hearing as well here on the ground is that the training is rigorous.
Hello and welcome to Inside Devils, sponsored by MUTV on Sky. A must for Man United fans to watch every pre-season fixture live and exclusive. Watch anytime, anywhere, T's and C's apply. And boy, oh boy, have we got plenty to get through today as Ruben Amorim's side kicked off their US tour on Sunday afternoon. And a lot has happened in the transfer market since we last recorded as well. So joining me in the studio is talkSPORT reporter and huge Man United fan, it's Anil Kandola. And over in Chi-Town, in the Windy City, I'm pleased to say, we've got Flex, Mr. Inside Devils himself down the line. How are you, Flex?
I'm good. Thanks for having me on the show. Thanks for inviting me.
It's Mr. Inside Devils himself down the line. How are you, man? You all good? What's the vibe over there?
I'm good. I'm a little bit tired, of course. In New Jersey, it's +5 or -5, should I say? And then you get an extra hour when you travel out to Chicago. So I'm 6 hours behind you guys. So it's a bit tiring, but actually it's good because you can get up, get your bits early done for the UK stuff, and then you're busy at it. Here, but the vibe's good. The vibe's good here. I've caught up with the players quite a few times. They're in good spirits. Well, I'm sure we're going to talk about the performance against West Ham, of course. But every time, you know what it is. Our support around the world, right? It does remind you. Sometimes you need reminding, obviously, that we're massive because we've had a difficult year, and it's been so hard and so negative. It's not until you get maybe out of that bubble of going to the games every week in the UK and step out into the global side of things and just seeing how happy fans are to see these players for the first time in their lives ever, regardless of what's gone on in the season, regardless of what's on the pitch, who we're going to buy, transfers, all of these things, just the purity of just being a Manchester United fan. And it hits me every single year, whether that's in Asia, whether that's in the Americas, or in Europe, it's brilliant. So yeah, from that perspective, the vibe's great, guys.
Do you know what? And it's so unsung as well because we recently learned we got a bigger attendance than the Club World Cup final for a friendly. So Manchester, you know what I mean? So I'm hearing what you're saying. Manchester United, we're still, of course, no doubt about it, one of the biggest clubs in the world. I know, going back to UK time, how are you getting on? How are you feeling about the pre-season, everything that's going on, that result against West Ham?
Yeah, I think, look, firstly, pleasure to join you. Always an honour to talk Manchester United, of course. I think it's just the beauty of football, isn't it? You can have quite literally the most awful season with so many things to be disappointed about. But the moment the football's over, the moment that pre-season starts, you see all the nice images and all the great content out on tour. And, of course, a couple of the new players. Of course, we would like to see a couple more go through the door. But, you know, to see the likes of Cunha and Bomo, you know, integrate within the squad, I think it does really fill Manchester United fans with a bit of hope and optimism, of course, ahead of the season. So, yeah, I think it is good vibes. Let's just hope that continues for the rest of the new season, my friends.
I'm with you. Look, we start to believe again, don't we, as soon as pre-season kicks off. Now, Man United's hunt for a new number 9 continues, and we've had some big news regarding Benjamin Sesko come to surface yesterday. Here to provide us with the latest is, of course, our very own superstar. I'm really glad to say Ben Jacobs joins us. Ben, how are you, sir? You okay? Thanks for joining us once again.
Everything is good. A crazy summer, a busy summer, and one very much framed around centre forwards.
Yeah, exactly that, to be honest with you. Now, what's happening? I mean, we talk about this quest for Sesko. We're getting updates. He wants United. No, he wants Newcastle. Let's get grounded for a second and get your take on it. What is your understanding on this transfer and everything around it?
Yeah, my understanding is that Manchester United had held internal conversations to whittle down a shortlist that had 3 leading names on it, maybe the last time we spoke, in Ollie Watkins, Benjamin Sesko and Nicholas Jackson. About 7 days ago, they decided that Jackson doesn't look feasible. And I think the only thing that would change that is if Chelsea come calling for Alejandro Garnacho, which is not beyond the realms of possibility, but also that Jackson price drops and significantly. So nothing active there. And that leaves 2, Benjamin Sesko and Ollie Watkins. Last week, again, talks were held with the Watkins side and with Aston Villa, even though some Villa sources tried to downplay it. And Manchester United asked the question and were told 60 million and a Villa preference to keep. So now, if Villa got a replacement or that price was to drop, Manchester United might go in that direction. Otherwise, Benjamin Sesko is still on the radar. Remember, 12 months ago, Manchester United made a pitch. Sesko decided to stay at Leipzig. Arsenal and Chelsea were there at that point. Now the Sesko deal is going to come down to whether the price drops, because Leipzig still want in excess of 80 million euros. Manchester United's valuation is much closer to 70 million euros. And as you say, there's also this possibility that Newcastle get that deal over the line too. And if Manchester United want Sesko, they're going to have to be quicker than for Ollie Watkins, because Newcastle are advanced on the player side. They're in club-to-club talks. They're ready to bid. Manchester United is still having an internal debate and conversation. And as a consequence, that outreach for both Watkins and Sesko is still formative. But I get the impression this is a big week in the pursuit of a number 9, because if it's Sesko, Manchester United are going to have to get moving. If we hear a bit of a lull, it probably means they're looking for proven Premier League experience and they genuinely believe that Watkins might become available. But right now, there's more clarity to the picture. Sesko and Watkins are the 2 names that Manchester United are actively working on.
Well, we'll get into the between us amongst the studio. We'll get into the actual options that we've got in terms of Watkins and Sesko and who we might prefer. Flex, I'm just going to chuck over to you here, though. We talk about those internal discussions about bringing this, elusive number 9 in. Is there a realm? I'm going to pivot here. Is there a realm where Højlund, from what we've seen so far, can he muscle his way into this squad and can he still be an option, or do you consider a striker to come through the door pivotal?
No, I think a striker is definitely pivotal. I think, from what we've seen from the media and a few on the ground here, Manchester United are looking for a number 9. Fact. That is what is happening. So I think the feeling is that, Ruben has seen that position as somewhere that needs to be strengthened. And I think that's the right thing amongst other things. I think Rasmus Højlund was thrown into the deep end really early in his career. Of course, no real choice over or control over the price tag in which he came to us for. And after the first season, he actually I think he actually looked all right. I think there was a large portion of us that was like, okay, this kid's quite raw, but there's something to work with. I don't think we envisioned a season quite like this in the last season, not just for the team, but specifically for him. Because you don't go from looking, decent in the first season, 16 goals, you think there's more work to be done, to all of a sudden, it's one of the worst signs. Something's gone wrong in between, which of course we finished 15th and look at what happened to the whole team. So I do feel it for him a little bit there, but I still understand that Manchester United should have somebody more experienced or of a higher level in that situation, either to help him to learn off or of course to play instead. So I think we definitely need a striker for sure. I think we scored 44 goals last season, which is just a ridiculously poor return for us. So for me, yes, absolutely right. We need to be looking for a striker. Benjamin Sesko and Watkins, I like the links. We'll talk more about those individually, but just on Rasmus Højlund, I think he's struggled so much. His confidence is shot. He's got nobody to learn off. He's got no support. And I think it's the right move to look for number 9 for sure. Yeah, no, fair. For the record, I agree with you. Just picking up on something you said there, Flex, and actually I think the viewers will want to hear about this as well, Ben, is Watkins. We're hearing the name float around a bit. How credible is this? How advanced are these talks? Is this actually a possibility? Is it on the table that Man United have an opportunity to sign Ollie Watkins or at least in for him? Concrete?
It's concrete for sure. They held initial talks last week. It all kind of depends on Aston Villa. First of all, they'd have to find a replacement. Second of all, the valuation would need to be met. My understanding is that Watkins is very open to Manchester United, but Villa will have a big say in all of this. And we have to respect the position as of now, which is that Ollie Watkins isn't for sale. But you may remember Alexander Isak has not been for sale for basically the last 6 months. And at the end of the window, is he going to stay or go? We don't know. The door is certainly open for Liverpool. It's the same kind of situation where if the stars align and Villa either have their valuation met or alternatively bring in a replacement, not for sale might not mean not for sale. And I think Manchester United are still relatively optimistic that at the right number and with the right set of circumstances, Watkins may become a concrete possibility. They just have to be a little bit patient, potentially. Some sources, even close to Villa, hint that an offer in excess of 50 million rather than 60 might stand a realistic chance as well, especially if the player drives a move away in any capacity. So Watkins and Manchester United remains one to watch. And it's a fascinating debate because if they're looking for long-term value, if they're leaning on the experience and view of Christopher Vivell, who knows Sesko very well, they're going to go down the route of a big outlay for a longer-term investment. But if we look at Bryan Mbeumo, Matheus Cunha, and now Watkins, they're 3 proven Premier League players that can make an instant impact. And it may be that they pivot because I sense Ruben Amorim is saying, let's just get players for the now. Let's find players that can instantly have an impact. Let's get in starters who have proven statistical, consistent records, meaning if those 3 combine, and remember, Watkins already has a pre-existing relationship with Mbeumo as well. You can get that instant return to catapult Manchester United from close to the relegation zone to hopefully back into a Champions League spot. So I think this is the debate ongoing at the moment. It's very healthy. You need the freedom to challenge. I think Christopher Vivell is forward planning and saying Sesko is our future. And I think Ruben Amorim is saying fine at the right price, but there's an urgency, and Watkins is the more instant fix. Yeah, that is quite the dilemma, to be fair. I know I'm going to bring you in here. Let's say we explore this realm where Ollie Watkins becomes a Manchester United player. It's a new manager, it's a new system. Manchester United, let's be frank, struggled last season. Do you think Ollie Watkins will have that instant impact that we're talking about potentially he might?
Yeah, for sure. I think Ben raises a very good point there in terms of already having a bit of experience with Bryan Mbeumo. He'll obviously look for certain individuals amongst that squad to really help him blossom within the team as well. Guaranteed goals. There's not going to be this cooling period, if you like, in terms of allowing Ollie Watkins to get used to the Premier League or English football or anything like that. He's, of course, got all of that in abundance. But I just get a little bit confused with this. I wouldn't necessarily be against the signing of Ollie Watkins. I think he's hardworking, he's an honest player, and I think he will score them goals. But when Ineos took over, we were told, and we've seen through evidence with some of their signings, that they don't necessarily want to go down the route of the Casemiros in terms of signing someone who's already at that stage of his career. He's going to come in for a couple of seasons and then he'll move on. They always said that they wanted to sign players who were younger and to build for the future. So by that logic, Benjamin Sesko would fit that mould. So it does confuse me a little bit in terms of Ollie Watkins, of course, quite close to 30. It would be a signing very much here and now. But then it does almost contradict a little bit the future plans for Ineos. So I think I'm a little bit confused on that regard. But look, Man United need goals and Ollie Watkins scores them.
Yeah. But I hear that reservation there, though, because it does feel like with this transfer they're abandoning that strategy that they initially came in with. So I take the point. You think about the transfer window, you think about arrivals, but the undertone of Manchester United's transfer window is departures, isn't it? You know, that is pivotal for potentially who we might be able to bring in down the line. Now a name that's becoming a bit more concrete, a rumour that's becoming a bit more concrete, is my boy Alejandro Garnacho. We know we back him every other week. But being linked to Chelsea. So it looks like Chelsea, I know that they've got other deals bubbling along as well. But this is starting to get a little bit more serious, is it?
Yeah, I think it's been serious all summer. And from Chelsea's point of view, they're working at the moment on Xavi Simons and also the defender Jorel Hato. And it looks like both of those Dutch players are going to come in. But just because Xavi joins, it doesn't mean there's not room for one more. And the reason for that is because Xavi's viewed as a number 10, albeit versatile, and can float out either to the left or the right. But then if you look at the left wing situation at Chelsea, Jadon Sancho was returned, another player that Manchester United want to sell. Mikhailo Mudryk can't play at the moment. Tyreek George may be loaned out. And Giovanni Quenda, another left winger, doesn't join from Sporting until summer 2026. So even though Jamie Gittins has arrived, it might be Xavi and a player like Alejandro Garnacho. And this is where Garnacho is waiting because he's open to Chelsea, and more broadly, he wants to stay in the Premier League. So gone are the days of Napoli coming in, at least for now. Nothing active there. Villa is also a possibility, but Garnacho would welcome a move to Chelsea. And that's why the door isn't 100% shut on Nicholas Jackson, just 99% right now, and certainly not something that Manchester United think is likely or they're working on. But could there be a situation where if Chelsea come calling for Garnacho, Manchester United, if they don't have Sesko or Watkins, then at least inquire as to whether the Jackson price has dropped? I wouldn't rule it out, but it's just not deemed by sources as likely at the moment. But a straight deal for Garnacho to go to Chelsea, possible, maybe even a double loan. I don't think we should rule out a loan with a buy option for either club. Again, if Manchester United can't get the other two strikers, do they say Jackson's too expensive, let's do it with a loan and a buy option? And do Chelsea say, if we've got Quenda coming in a year, let's do Garnacho on a loan with a buy option? These things are hypothetical for now, but keep an eye on Garnacho to Chelsea and more broadly Garnacho to the Premier League. That's the player's preference. And now Manchester United are hoping that an exit can be facilitated quickly because that's the fee that's pure profit on the books.
Wow. Well, to say that, I mean, I used to say Garnacho splits the fan base. I think it's probably tilting towards get him out the door and get some pure profit now, which is fair. That's how these things evolve. But we encourage debate in Inside Devil. So please, get your comments in and let's hear your opinion on it. Flex, with that being said, I want to get yours. But more on the fact that selling to a Premier League rival like Chelsea, a player like Garnacho, whatever your opinion of him is, do you think that's a little bit naive from Manchester United, or do you just take the fee as it comes if Chelsea are prepared to buy?
No, for me, I think you take the fee as it comes for Manchester United. We're in a position now where the rebuild is paramount. I don't think we're in a position at this precise minute where we're competing at the top end of the Premier League in this moment, looking at top four. And I think the squad is too unbalanced, maybe in terms of attributes and harmony, for us to be nitpicking at, don't really want to sell to him, don't really want to sell to them. So I think, especially with Alejandro Garnacho, where the decision's been made, whether rightly or wrongly, that he's going to be departing the club. He's somebody who represents pure profit. So if you got a 40, 50, 60 million pounds for him, the way you can amortize that over a period of time is it's not just that singular fee, because he represents pure profit, which is incredibly valuable to Manchester United, especially in this window when we're trying to rebuild. In essence, Alejandro Garnacho, for me, is our most sellable asset. And I know that sounds a bit transactional, and I know that might hurt your feelings, Ryan. But
no, I'm with you.
It's the situation we've got to, right? I think those conversations of whether he should leave or shouldn't are completely irrelevant now because he is leaving. Although Ruben Amorim has said, listen, if these guys don't get moves, I'm happy to have them back. That's just a ploy in front of the cameras, right? We all know what's going on. So I think because we're in that situation, we need to be somewhat ruthless. We need to be trying to sell. Of course, Ben, did you say don't, rule out the possibility of loans, etc., and anything can happen in the transfer window. But something that will suit us better, of course, will be to sell the player for a significant fee and reinvest that into the squad. So the fact that it's Chelsea, I wish Garnacho the best, to be honest. I'm not one of these Man United fans that doesn't think he's very good and think he's just purely overrated. And as soon as he leaves United, he's going to be quite mundane and average. I don't see that, especially actually if he stays in the Premier League and goes to somewhere like Villa or does go to somewhere like Chelsea. So no, I'm not too concerned with it could be Chelsea that he goes to. If I could absolutely choose, yes, I'd probably, off the top of my head, I'd rather him go to Atletico Madrid or I'd rather him go to Chelsea. But it's not, Napoli. But it's not a deal breaker for me. What's more important to me is that Manchester United make the transaction, which in turn gets us back to talking about striker incomings and number 6 incomings and strengthening this squad that really needs to be better. So we can even be mentioned next to the club world champion. So we can even be spoken about next to Villa and so on and so forth. So for me, that's the most important thing.
Yeah, no, look, I hear you. We may revisit some of these topics once Ben's left us. With that being said, I know your time is precious, Ben. Just very quickly, because there'll be Inside Devils viewers that really want me to ask this before I let you go. There's some alarm bell positions, goalkeeper. Some people think midfielder like myself. Anything there? Any developments in those areas at all?
So Kobbie Mainoo, Manchester United are calm about. I know we've heard some suggestions that Tottenham are going to enter that race. I still think Mainoo wants to stay at Manchester United. Manchester United want Mainoo to sign a new deal. Casemiro, they might be open to offers to because it gets the wage off the books. They've looked at budget options in midfield like Wilfred and Didi. Not necessarily names that would overly excite the fan base, but again, proven Premier League experience, and he has a 9 million relegation release clause. So if they add a midfielder, could be a young name or maybe someone with Premier League experience at the opposite end of the extreme, but much cheaper than the kind of attackers they're going for. And then regarding goalkeeper, if they stick to their original plan, it will be a young number 2. That's where Sene Lammens comes in, as we revealed on talkSPORT, and talks there are ongoing. Then they tried a loan offer at the other extreme for Emi Martinez. If they go down that route, it means they've changed their mind, and instead of bringing in a young goalkeeper to compete with Onana over time, they want a defined number 1. And that's where Emi Martinez and talks have been ongoing. Villa won't sanction a loan. That was a very audacious and speculative bid. But there is a possibility that Manchester United, in talking over Watkins, also continue discussions over Emi Martinez. The challenge there is he's got 3 years left on his contract. So the asking price is kind of 35 to 40 million, unless it drops significantly or there becomes an option somehow for like a loan with a buy option or an obligation. I think Manchester United will have to walk away. So Emi Martinez is not looking too likely at the moment, but the interest is genuine. And Sene Lammens is open to a move. And it wouldn't surprise me after all of the clamour and noise around established replacements for Onana if they actually stick to their original plan and bring in a young goalkeeper. And that's where Lammens is still the one to watch.
Wow. Well, there we have it. You heard it here on Inside Devils. Ben Jacobs, thank you once again for joining the show.
Cheers, guys. Always a pleasure.
What's the position as it stands right now? Obviously, it looks like we're advancing this number 9 talk. But what is the position you think that Manchester United need to address right now? Or at least by the end of the window, it has to be filled.
Yeah, for sure. Look, I think it goes without saying there are several areas, but if I had to be pinned down to one area, for me, it would be a midfielder. I think the main stem of issues for Manchester United over the last few years, stretching back over several managers, is this gaping hole almost in midfield. It just seems, for all of the positive build-up that we sometimes see with Manchester United's forwards over the years, or, you know, even at times some very solid defensive performances, it almost seems to be always undone because there is such an ease for opposition to just transition straight through that midfield and make a defensive issue right through to an attacking option for the opponent. So I think a midfielder is imperative. I think someone who can really stabilise and really give essentially not just the defence a little bit more confidence, but also the attackers as well. I understand we're in an era of pressing and you've got to really try and get the ball as soon as you lose it. You know, the 5 or 10 second rule, once you've lost it, get it back within 5 or 10 seconds. I get all that.
Yeah.
But there does need to be some time for the attackers to reserve energy for the attacking.
Yeah.
So I think a midfielder, not just necessarily for tactical purposes, but also for the benefit of the attackers as well, there needs to be someone in there with some legs, essentially. So yeah, I'd say if I had to have just one more sign-in, I think it's got to be midfield.
So just to be clear, you would prioritise a midfielder over bringing in a number 9 right now?
Yeah, because ultimately we saw quite a good and positive run of form just before his injury with Joshua Zirkzee. I'm not saying he's the answer at all, but we saw that he can provide something a little bit more dynamic, shall we say. Rasmus Højlund, I think, not necessarily the jury's still out, but we understand that it's become such a difficult time for him. I'm probably in the camp of saying that forever it will just not be at Manchester United in terms of really reaching his potential. So yeah. I understand that, but you look at the players that Manchester United have brought in, Brian Mbeumo and Matheus Cunha, they bring goals in, they bring the attacking prowess, which will ultimately allow the forwards to feel more confident in terms of having more opportunity, having the chances in front of goal to put the ball into the back of the net. I think with the midfield, you can have all of the attackers in the world you want, you could have good defenders as well, but in the heart of that midfield, if it's so easy for teams to just transition right through, then ultimately the work of the attackers and the defence is essentially redundant. So I think a midfielder, and it's not by a massive margin, but I do think a midfielder is imperative for Manchester United.
Fair. I'll pin you down to an answer there, so fair play. Flex, what about you if I throw the same question your way? Are you of the opinion that that's the same, or are you thinking Manchester United prioritising the striker, they're doing the right thing?
It's so hard. I honestly, guys, keep pivoting from week to week.
I think we really all do.
Yeah, because that's how important both of these positions are. And I actually see arguments from both sides. And I've been saying a number 6 is just so important. And then I kind of flip it and say, we've struggled so much at number 9 and the potency up that end of the pitch that, you know, the ball doesn't stick. It almost comes back every time, which puts more pressure on your midfield anyway, because your moves keep breaking down. But you add Cunha and Mbeumo into it, it does help. I think a number 9 is imperative because the pressure that's put onto the number 9, the pressure of delivering goals as that centre forward is just so ever present at Man United, and that has been our biggest problem, scoring goals. When I think about it now, as you ask me, if Ugarte can improve a little bit in terms of, he's always going to be a good ball winner. That's what he does. But in terms of on the ball, of course, there's some wanting. But also you've got to look at your 3 central defenders, right? Your 3 centre-backs. Because actually I was doing some stuff, spoke with Rio actually the other day, and he brought up a good comment. So I'm going to nick it and bring it here, actually. It was quite good.
Do it.
But he was talking about the 3 centre-halves and saying, if they improve and understand when to step in to add that protection to the 2 in front in midfield, a lot of what goes wrong can actually be alleviated when you play that back 3, because it's all about the one who's tasked with having to step in and go and be strong and fill in as that extra central midfielder, which of course you get nightmares if you think it's going to be Harry Maguire having to step in and play that high. But if you look at sort of maybe Aiden Heaven and Lenny Yoro and even Alessandro Martinez when he's back in there, they're really aggressive and quick and on the front foot. And in Ruben's system, he has emphasis on one of those central defenders stepping in there to add that extra protection. So a lot of what we're seeing of why we're so poor in midfield isn't always just down to one singular thing, that Ugarte's just not good enough on the ball or Casemiro's too slow. If the team as a unit is more compact and knows the cues and the triggers of when to jump, all of a sudden you don't have those big gaps in central midfield, which makes that more of a sort of easier situation to deal with overall if the team is set up better in terms of tactically.
Yeah.
So then I go towards the number 9. I go, actually, that's a good point. Then I'll probably say number 9 is probably more important if we can fix the things that I just brought to the table, which made me look at it different. So
do you know what,
it's
Flex?
still very, very close.
It sounds like, because you've got your fingers on a pulse over there. It sounds like the pre-season because you've mentioned Ugarte there. Is it changing your mind at all about this?
I still think, listen, I think Manu has got a lot to improve on. He did speak to the media after the game against West Ham, because he did have a really good game against West Ham.
Yeah.
And the way in which he had that aggressive nature to win the ball back. But one of the things he said, what Ruben was demanding from him, was to get the ball forward quicker, recover the ball as quickly as possible, but also, progress the ball quicker. And we saw that from him. Yes, it was against a West Ham team that's in the making and it's pre-season, etc. But there was a little bit there, and I just get the feeling, it's just a feeling, that there's an acceptance that he can improve in that position, and us as a unit can improve in that position. Because the number 6 is still being looked at, by the way. It is, 100%, that's a fact too. But I do know that number 9 seems to be the main priority now. And when it was broken down to me like that, I do kind of see how, but because I am with Anil on this. Like, it's, for me, I worry for Bruno in this, because if you put Bruno to partner up with any of the central midfielders we currently have, that's not a natural fit. In a 3-man midfield, we could have got away with it. In a 3-man midfield, I think Ugarte is good. In a 3-man midfield, I think Kobbie Mainoo would be fine in there. But this is a 2-man midfield, which is why if we don't have those 3 centre-halves doing what they're supposed to be doing, or the wing-backs, which, like I said, they're out of the equation. They're high and wide. When we've got the ball, they are wingers. They're gone. So that does expose the 2. If we don't get that right, you compare Bruno with anyone in this midfield, and I don't think it particularly works too well against top Premier League opposition. But who's to say, like I said, if the team improves tactically with understanding when to go, when not to go, when to step in, when not to step in, all of a sudden we can look more robust just off improving the understanding of the system rather than having to bring in new personnel. But I would say, to give you an actual answer,
go on.
I would say just about striker, like just. And then ask me next week, and it's going to go back to central midfield again.
So it's 1-1. I obviously said midfielder, Flex. You said striker, Ryan. You get the.
I get the deciding vote. I am going to say
goalkeeper.
Let's spice it up. I'm going to say midfielder. And make it 2-1.
Sunday saw our first game and victory of the US Tour with a 2-1 win over West Ham. Bruno Fernandes was he scored the brace, didn't it, in front of over 80,000 fans at the MetLife Stadium in New York. Let's stick with you here, Anil. Who stood out for you in that game? And I have a feeling you're not going to say Bruno to me, are you? But who is it that stood out for you?
Yeah, we can discuss Bruno Fernandes in great detail and length. I think. Do you know what? In general, overall, I did like to see just slight differences in terms of the players understanding a little bit more what they're required. I thought the wing-backs were getting into better positions, not necessarily perfect, of course, it's still pre-season, still early days, but I did like to see that they understood that their job is to make the most of the space going forward, which would, of course, overload, put the defensive team on the back foot, and hopefully allow some pockets of space almost. So I did enjoy, in general, the formation in terms of the players understanding a little bit more what they were supposed to do. I think with Bruno Fernandes, look, I know and I understand, you know, the people that follow me on social media will understand that I'm not his biggest fan, but let's park that to one side. I don't want.
Should we park that, Flex?
I don't want.
Great. We shouldn't park it. We should all unfollow Anil. That's what we should do.
Okay, well, if you haven't unfollowed me already, you definitely will after what I'm about to say, Flex. Look, I think in this system, I was just talking there about in terms of, you know, it's good to see the players seemingly understanding a little bit more what they want to do. But I'm sorry, but Bruno Fernandes does not fit into the Ruben Amorim system. He's a singular 10 who enjoys the whole of the play to go in and through him. You've signed players like Cunha and Burmo for the price tags that they were. They're not going to sit on the bench. So they're going to occupy the two inside 10s or however you want to shape it up, which would then obviously lead to Bruno Fernandes dropping deeper in order to get him into the team. Now, you are going to expect, very similar to what everyone did with Casemiro, expect him to, at the, not quite the twilight of his career with Fernandes, but at the latter stage of his career, to try and implement a whole different role to what he's been used to throughout his career. Look at what that's done for Casemiro's street cred almost, you know. People are criticising one of the best players of a generation in terms of being in midfield because he couldn't simply get across the pitch. Now, if you have Bruno Fernandes in that deeper role next to a midfielder, Flex, you did say it a little bit, and I agree in terms of you can put anyone next to him and it won't work. And that's simply because Bruno Fernandes does not play in that role. And it ultimately leads me to think...
What do you do with him then? What do you do with Bruno?
But this is the thing. If you sign Mbeumo and you sign Cunha and you know you want to keep Fernandes in the team, then it does raise question marks. I'm massive fans of both of them new signings respectively, but it just simply does not make sense because you have Fernandes, who everyone tells me is irreplaceable. Many fans were happy at the fact that they turned £100 million down for him, which for me is quite ludicrous. We were talking and Flex, I just made sure that I wrote down a couple of the sound bites that you said when we were talking to Ben Jacobs. You said that the rebuild is paramount. You said that we need to be ruthless in this rebuild. When a team of any sort come in for any player that has finished 15th for £100 million, that rebuild would have been alive. And unfortunately, Manchester United have said no to that. And you look at the positions that now Manchester United have strengthened in. Say again?
Bruno said no to that. That's what we have to remember with what happened with Saudi. Yes, Manchester United didn't say you're for sale, but at the end of the day, we have a player who's turned down astronomical money to actually remain at this football club, who still have an impact at this football club. And in our worst season, when he started off really poorly, actually, I remember the game against Fulham, couldn't hit a bundle, and he started off really poorly. Who puts his head above the parapet and puts the numbers on the board, actually, in a turmoil season? What Bruno Fernandes does is prove that no matter what's going on at the club, no matter what the situation, no matter the manager, no matter where you ask me to play, no matter who's struggling for confidence, I will do my job. I will create chances and I will score goals. All the stuff around that, where the manager plays me, the team building around it, not my problem. My job is, as Manchester United captain, is to encourage others to play well, have the right attitude, first of all, and secondly, is to do my job. And the last time I checked what his job role was in his job description as an attacking midfielder is to create chances. And when you look at the numbers and look at the metric, he's created pretty much, not arguably, more than top end, the top percentile of chances in the Premier League and Europe. And he's scoring goals as well. And he's done that consistently since he's arrived at the club. So yes, I 100% think the rebuild needs to be paramount. But part of the rebuild being paramount and thinking what needs to happen is you need to keep your best players. You need to try and keep the players who actually have a consistent impact at the football club. So I do understand, I do 100% agree with you, Neil, that like I said, I'm actually concerned he's going to become the scapegoat like this before we've even kicked off, because, like I said, Ruben's making a decision to put him with people that aren't necessarily the best partners. I don't necessarily think it's because Bruno can't play there. I think the partners that he has to partner up with are an issue, because if we said Bruno can't play there, how has he managed to play in all these different positions and still have the same output? It's not like Bruno's gone high and he's got 2 goals and 2 assists because he's just nowhere near the box. What the data shows us is that no matter where Bruno plays or what you ask of him, he still finds a way to deliver. That's the evidence. That's what it's actually shown us. So I think we need to look elsewhere, more towards Amarim's decisions of how he's going to squad build rather than it's on Bruno Fernandes. And like I said, just with the move to Saudi or lack of, he said, I don't want to go there. He said, I don't want to move.
He wants to play for Manchester United.
It wasn't Man United saying, you're not leaving.
I think the quotes were that he said that if the club wanted me to go, then I would have gone. So, yeah, I think that's more of a reflection on Manchester United rather than Bruno Fernandes. But in terms of the goals and assists, I'm not going to sit here for 1 second and say that he isn't a good player. He's a great player. He is. But my concern is
he's world class, Anil. I've got to say, he's world class.
Yeah, maybe. But then when you know that his price tag is 100 million... If you know his price tag is 100 million, I wasn't so sure of seeing too many other clubs lining up to sign him when you knew that 100 million was certainly a price tag that would have at least attracted Manchester United's interest. No other club were in for him, so he can't be that world class.
Do you know what? For me, Bruno's better in the 10 because I've got to move on. But Bruno's better in the 10 than Mbeumo and Cunha.
So why have they signed two?
Well, obviously, it must mean that Amarim has a plan in mind. He's going to have a look at this realm where Bruno can transition into this deep line playmaker role. And let's just hope it works.
Let's hope so.
Two contrasting opinions. I'm glad we got it.
Any Bruno Fernandes goals next year or any assists. I don't want you happy for him next year.
Kobbie Mainoo, there was some big comments about him before. Amrin said, it's a big season. I've got plans for Kobbie. And Flex, he had a brilliant game, didn't he?
Yeah, he had a really good game. Another one that you think of that you might be worried for in this system, actually, and the plans under Ruben Amorim is, of course, Kobbie. And in contrast to Bruno, like you say, he is like the future of Man United, or we would like him to be. We would like the team to be built around him, or him to have a really influential role. And I think he's had people forget that Kobbie Mainoo still hasn't had a full season of playing football. You know that? Like, his first breakthrough, obviously, he got injured against Real Madrid in pre-season, and then he was out until the October-November, then made his debut against Everton and went all the way to the Euros finals whilst winning the FA Cup. So it was an incredible 6 or 7, 8 months for Kobbie, probably less, which doesn't normally happen. Last season, injuries, manager gets sacked in Erik ten Hag, then a new system comes in, then he's struggling to find his way in it, then he gets injured, then all the priorities just on Europa League and he can't get back into the team. So Kobbie's actually had a little bit of turmoil in what was a great run. So we forget how young he is, and that he just needs to, first of all, he needs to stay healthy this year so he's up for selection. I think Ruben Amorim is still deciding where his best position is. He has told us, in pressers, that he prefers playing further forward. He's brilliant with the ball at his feet, which we know. I think he's more suited to one of these inside 10 positions. However, you see him play against West Ham, very small sample size, and it is a friendly. And he was partnered with Ugarte, and he played well. Yeah. And I think, is that again, and why did he play well? Why were we good against West Ham? And again, we have to take small snippets to try and turn them into bigger things that we can expand on, right? The reason why we were good against West Ham, if you watch it back, was, again, these triggers and these cues of when to press. Exactly. And that is more what it looks like how Amorim wants us to play. So everybody was jumping at the right time. Nobody was late into the press. And actually, one of the only times where we were late to the press was that situation where the midfielders aren't backed up by the 3 centre-halves, and then they break the lines, and then they're in, and Jared Bowen gets the score because we're all running back to our own goal. Yeah. If you limit that happening, it does show that maybe Kobbie Mainoo in this system, whether it's a left 10 or a right 10, or the left 6 or the right 6, if the system is implemented better and there's a higher understanding of it, and those cues and those repetitions within the system, that autonomous nature is there to the system, then Kobbie Mainoo is good enough to play in either of those. But I do think he's suited to playing higher up the pitch. Look at the second goal. Everybody goes pressing. The ball ends up at Kobbie Mainoo because why? He's pressing, he's in the right position, gives the ball to Bruno, Bruno does the rest. So, look, I do worry that if the spaces are too big, we can misprofile Kobbie. I don't think he's just a deep lying 6 who can control the park and dictate play from deep. I don't see him as that sort of player. I'd like to see him further forward. But again, like Anil said, we've just spent 136 million on Cunha and Mbeumo. Could we see a situation where sometimes Mbeumo plays up front? Yeah. That opens up the space. Could we see a place where sometimes Cunha might play up front, etc.? And are we getting too wrapped up in he has to start? Some games you can't go all guns blazing and go hell for leather and start Ahmad right wing back, Mateus Cunha and Bruno and Mbeumo and Kobbie Mainoo all in the same team, still attacking. You pull up to Anfield, you might go, tell you what, Ahmad, go on the bench for this one. We've got Dalot right wing back. And I tell you what, Brian, you step out. We're going to go for someone a bit more conservative in there. Mason Mount might start this one. Or there's going to be different plays for different games. But Kobbie, I need him to be an integral part, man, because I do not want us to waste this player. I worry that he's not going to get enough minutes this year, has a fit season, gets to the end of it and says, I'm going. Okay, what's going on for me here? Yeah, I don't want that.
I think you're right. And I think you absolutely nailed it there. I saw a bit of that stuff you did with Rio. That we're getting more and more apparent that everybody has to sing from the same hymn sheet. There has to be cohesion with the press. We have to all go together, and that's potentially where the disconnect has been. That Bowen goal, for example, is case in point, isn't it? I'll move on to you, Anil. Who's been the standout guy for you this pre-season? Who's been that name where you think, yes?
Do you know what? I think it potentially might be a bit of an easy answer, if you like, but I've just enjoyed so much to see Cunha. Not necessarily just within the team, as Flex already said, it's a very small sample size in terms of really gauging what he's going to contribute. I think there were passages of play in the friendly games where I did see that work rate almost with Bruno Fernandes, that combination, they seem to be on the same hymn sheet. But also in a wider aspect, I think a lot of criticism and a lot of Manchester United's downfall has been the state of the squad in terms of their attitude, if you like. But it's quite unprecedented to see someone go into a side and a squad and seamlessly
own it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Really get involved with it. I think that's so refreshing to see,
There's a refreshing directness to Cunha's game, isn't there? There's, which, look, we've lacked, and it's good to see. And he looks down to earth as well. He was dapping up Flex over the barrier as well. Flex, that video that went viral, it was all on my timeline. So he looks like a down-to-earth guy and a good character.
He looks good. He looks great. And just like on the ground, I've spoken to some of the United staff here, and they have said, like, behind the scenes, like in the changing room, real driving force already.
Wow.
It looks like he's been here a long time already. He understands his role within the team. There's little clips of him. I don't know if you've seen on social media when he's on the bench, sort of, hyping up other players.
He's one of the boys, isn't he? He's one of the boys already.
And you can honestly feel it. Yes, of course, he's a new signing. He's got the number 10 shirt. He is, he's taking time to give time to fans, etc., and embrace the what's going on here. But just culturally, with the reset we're trying to do and the shift, 100% agree with Anil. He seems like a real good egg. And when you see the narrative of, that a couple of flashpoints he had at Wolves when they're, by the way, in a relegation battle, and he's showing absolute passion and desire and fight, really, to make sure Wolves didn't get relegated, which worked, by the way. I think it's been used to sort of disdain him a little bit. And yes, we'll see in the heat of battle when the true test is when you go to the Anfield and it's difficult. When you go to the Etihad and the Emirates, watch the temperament like then. But I think we're in safe hands, guys. I agree with Neil. I think he looks great. And on the pitch, little flashes. You see him just pick up the ball on a half turn already,
bang,
win a couple fouls. Yeah. Even if the final ball hasn't been there yet, you go, we've upgraded. Yeah. We've upgraded straight away. Sorry for your man Garnacho, but straight away you go, he's an upgrade. He's an upgrade.
And that we can agree on. I'm not going to dig my heels in on that one. I'm just going to quickly, before we move on, give a quick shout out to Dorgu. Because I've sat on a few Inside Devils now, right, where I've had to defend him. January signing, young man.
Where's she?
Say it again.
Angelina, where's she? I remember a show where you was defending him passionately again, and you was like, "Hold on, he's just come here. What are we doing here?
Give him a chance. Give him a chance. A young man, essentially learning a new language, learning a new country, learning his teammates, a new system, and he's come into this pre-season and he looks like a new signing. So it's every so often there's one of those players where you just go, "Oh yes. Here we go. We've already spent the money on him, but it looks like we've got a new version of this player, and all it's taken is for him to bed in. I'm not going to go too early on it, but I've got high hopes for him just based on what I've seen so far, and that is the case in point of what a good pre-season can do for you. So go on, Dorgu. I'm well in your corner. So here we go. You're out there at the moment, Flex. You've got your fingers on the pulse. You've got your ear to the ground. You're repping Inside Devils. What can we expect to see from you? Who are you putting your microphone in front of? What you got going on?
Yeah, well, I've got an interview with Diogo Dalot later on today, so that'd be nice. Down at the team hotel, spend some time with him, see what he has to say about how training is. We want to talk to him about the demands that Ruben's placing on him, get some sort of, try and pin him down to some expectations, what we can expect next year. And actually, this situation I'm talking about with the system and that as well, I think it'd be really interesting to see how he feels about that, about those cues, about what it is that Ruben's trying to get them to do. I've noticed that the players, even though this is Ruben's first pre-season, I have sensed the calmness from the players, considering it was so bad last year.
Hey, that's good news.
It is good news. I was sort of expecting them to be a little bit uptight and, I don't know, maybe not as approachable, but what I am hearing as well here on the ground is that the training is rigorous. And I know there's been a lot of people online that have noticed certain pictures of the players. And you don't want to buy into it too much, that have noticed that some of them have come back looking really lean, really chiseled, really ready to go. The physicality looks like it's going to improve. And I have heard that there is a big emphasis on that conditioning. Rio caught up with Brian and Boomer, that's out as well. But he said that training has been hard. They're running. They are running, which, listen, Premier League footballers in training run. Okay, great. Newsflash. I don't mean it like that, but I just mean it in terms of just because there's this relaxed nature to tour and pre-season, it's also about understanding how important that is. We've got new characters, new faces. We're trying to build a new culture. You have to allow the players to integrate, right? You have to allow them to have that relaxed setting. If you just make it like an army barracks that isn't really replicated back home, you're not going to get that natural cohesion, are you, between the players to gel with their relationship. So no, I'm looking forward to catching up with Dalla. We're going to do that. We're going to bring him to Inside Devils and see what he has to say.
Unbelievable. I can't wait for that. We're going to wait with bated breath. Guys, don't know where the time goes. That is it. That was Inside Devils, sponsored by MUTV on Sky. A must for Man United fans to watch every pre-season fixture live and exclusive. Watch anytime, anywhere. Existing Sky TV customers can upgrade now for just £7 extra a month. Just search MUTV on Sky or go to sky.com/MUTV. £7 extra on a 31-day rolling subscription. Requires HD-compatible Sky equipment and Sky TV subscription from £15 per month. Cancel MUTV on 31 days' notice. Terms apply. And we'll see you next time.